Okay, this is Chairman Fatboy with the Garden Grove Housing Authority, and today we now open the Housing Authority meeting for the December 8th. Madam Clerk, could you please roll call? Housing Authority, and today we now open the Housing Authority meeting for the December 8th. Madam Clerk, could you please roll call?
Commissioner Beckles. Commissioner Brightigam.
Here.
Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Commissioner Klopfenstein.
Here.
Commissioner Deidre Nguyen.
Here.
Commissioner O'Neill.
Here.
Commissioner Solario.
Here.
Vice Chair Kim Nguyen.
Here.
Chair Bowie.
Here.
Commissioner Beckles.
Here.
Thank you.
So we are all here. I now would like to open oral communications. Madam Clerk, anyone who would like to talk on this, that would like to address the Housing Authority?
No, Chair Bowie, there are no speakers.
Okay, good. Moving on to reorganization, selection of the chair and vice chair. Is there any nomination, please?
I'll move we keep it the same.
Mayor Jones, I'd like to make a substitute motion. I would like to nominate myself for chair and Councilmember Tu-Han Nguyen for vice chair.
Is there a second?
This is Councilman O'Neill. I'll second the Kim Nguyen's motion.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please call for the vote.
Commissioner Beckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Brightigam.
Yes.
Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Klopfenstein.
Yes.
Commissioner Deidre Nguyen.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Neill.
Yes.
Commissioner Solario.
Yes.
Vice Chair Kim Nguyen.
Yes.
Chair Bowie.
Yes.
Motion received, 9 yes votes.
Okay, moving on to consent item 3A. Madam Clerk.
Chair Bowie, the meeting is now turned over to the new chair, which would be Commissioner Kim Nguyen.
Sure. Kim, could you take on to the consent item, please?
Sure, thank you. Moving on to the consent items, we have items 3A and 3B. I'd entertain a motion to approve both.
Second it.
Commissioner Beckles.
May we please take a, yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Beckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Brightigam.
Yes.
Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Klopfenstein.
Yes.
Commissioner Deidre Nguyen.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Neill.
Yes.
Commissioner Solario.
Yes.
Commissioner Bowie.
Yes.
Chair Kim Nguyen.
Yes.
Motion received, 9 yes votes.
Moving on, are there any matters from chair, commissioners, and/or directors? Hearing none, I adjourn this meeting and move it back to City Council, handing it over to Mayor Jones.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and convene the City Council meeting. Madam Clerk, would you like to call roll?
Councilmember Brightigam.
Here.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen.
Here.
Councilmember Bowie.
Here.
Councilmember Klopfenstein,
Here.
Councilmember Kim Nguyen,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill,
Here.
Mayor Jones.
Here. All righty, thank you. Councilmember Klopfenstein, since you did such a wonderful job in our special meeting, can I call upon you again to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. Please stand and place your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Klopfenstein. Oral communications, Madam Clerk, do we have anybody there in person wishing to speak?
No, we do not, but we did receive some written communications, and I can just briefly describe the topic and those people who sent in emails. So for item 6A, you had several people in support of Rise Up Willowick demanding the city provide a detailed process to ensure good faith negotiations for the Willowick property and for the prioritization of negotiations with trust for public land, Clifford Beers Housing, and State Coastal Conservancy. And those people were Kyle McClellan, Greg Campfire, Carrie Reed, Michelle Zuniga, Karina Servin, Tracy Law on behalf of Viet Rise, Andre Guerra, and Sean Drexler. We also had another email from Tanya Sukija Cohen, and that is also on item 6A. Her topic was the Willowick property, letter urging the city to give first priority to the proposals making the greatest proportion of the land available for park and recreation purposes. Another individual writing in on item 6A, the Willowick Golf Course, was Robin Mark. His letter submitted on behalf of the Trust of Public Fund, urging the city to preserve Willowick as open space and affordable housing, and highlights that their proposal prioritizes the site for open space recreational use and thus satisfies the Surplus Land Act. The next writer was Mr. Craig Durfee. His topic, flawed design of public safety active transportation at Acacia Parkway and Nelson Avenue crosswalk places bike and pedestrians at high risk for injury. The last person to send in an email was Ugochi Nicholson, and this too was on item 6A, the Willowick Golf Course. This was a letter demanding the city provide a detailed process to ensure good faith negotiations for the Willowick property and for the city to prioritize negotiations with Trust for Public Land, Clifford Beers Housing, and State Coastal Conservancy. And that is all I have tonight.
Alrighty, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. That will take us on to item 2, reorganization of the City Council, selection of Mayor Pro Tempore. I'd like to start by thanking Mayor Pro Tem John O'Neill for doing a very honorable job representing the city this past year as Mayor Pro Tem. It was great working together with you in that context. And I would like to nominate Council Member Kim Bernice Nguyen to become Mayor Pro Tem for this year.
I would second it, Councilman Pat Bowie.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Brightingham,
Yes.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie,
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein,
Yes.
Councilmember Kim Nguyen,
A very grateful yes.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Congratulations, Councilmember Kim Nguyen. I mean, Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen.
Thank you.
Screwed that one up. Okay, we will now recess and conduct other legislative bodies business. So we're going to start with the sanitary district, Garden Grove Sanitary District. President Bowie.
Okay. Give me a second. Let me bring it up. Okay, so now we start the Standard District for the meeting of December 8th. Madam Clerk, please roll call, please.
Member Bridegan,
Here.
Member Jones,
Here.
Member Klopfenstein,
Here.
Member Kim Nguyen,
Here.
Member Deidre Nguyen,
Here.
Vice President O'Neill,
Here.
President Bowie.
Here. Okay. Moving on to oral communication, which I believe have been done simultaneously with the City Council. So let's work right into the reorganization. Selection of the President and Vice President of the Central District. Any nomination, please?
I'll make the same motion. We just keep it the same.
Any second?
Oh, O'Neill, I'll second it. O'Neill.
Okay, good. Madam Clerk, please call for the vote.
Member Bridegan,
Yes.
Member Jones,
Yes.
Member Klopfenstein,
Yes.
Member Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
Member Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Vice President O'Neill,
Yes.
President Bowie.
Yes.
Motion received,
Okay.
7 yes votes.
Moving on to consent item with to item 3A and 3B.
I'll move the balance.
Second.
I'll second.
Klopfenstein.
Call for the vote, please.
Member Bridegan,
Yes.
Member Jones,
Yes.
Member Klopfenstein,
Yes.
Member Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
Member Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Vice President O'Neill,
Yes.
President Bowie.
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Any matters from the board members? Hearing none, I will now adjourn the Central District meeting, and the next one will be held on Tuesday, January 26th. Back to Mayor Jones.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the Industrial Development Authority regular meeting. So I'll hand it over to Chair John O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I will, if the clerk could please call roll.
Member Bridegan,
Here.
Member Bowie,
Here.
Member Jones,
Here.
Member Klopfenstein,
We're going to the city council meeting.
Here.
Natalie and me, Chris, I'm like, oh, I'll just call in.
Member Deidre Nguyen, Vice Chair Kim Nguyen,
Here.
Chair O'Neill.
Here. Just a quick note, if anybody, please remember to mute your phone if you're not speaking. Thank you. At this time, we held oral communications simultaneously. We will go to the reorganization, the selection of chair and vice chair. Do I have any nominations?
I'll make the motion to keep it the same.
And I'll interrupt and just say that this is Councilmember Kim Nguyen. I would like to nominate Councilmember Fat Bowie for vice chair. And keep Councilmember John O'Neill as chair.
Okay, is that, we had a motion, no second, so that, Kim, that's kind of a different motion.
It's a substitute.
Motion?
I'll amend
I'll
mine
second
if
the
she can second it.
Okay.
Okay, so, Kim, would that be okay if George just amends his motion?
That's fine.
Okay, so George, could you just repeat your motion?
To keep John O'Neill as chair and Councilmember Fat Bowie as vice chair.
Great, okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can we call for the vote, please?
Member Bridegan,
Yes.
Member Bowie,
Yes.
Member Jones,
Yes.
Member Klumpenstein,
Yes.
Member Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Member Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
Chair O'Neill,
Yes.
motion received, 7 yes votes.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to item 3, consent items. We do have receive and file the annual report and the minutes from last year's meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll move the consent calendar.
I have a
Deidre,
motion.
second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Please call for the vote.
Member Bridegan,
Yes.
Member Bowie,
Yes.
Member Jones,
Yes.
Member Klumpenstein,
Yes.
Member Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Member Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
Chair O'Neill.
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
All right, thank you very much. Any matters from authority members? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting to the next regular Industrial Development Authority meeting, unless specially called, is December 14, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. at the Community Meeting Center. And now we will move on back to City Council.
All right, we'll actually go to successor agency now. So we'll open successor agency. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Member Bridegan,
Here.
Member O'Neill,
Here.
Member Deidre Nguyen,
Here.
Member Klumpenstein,
Here.
Member Kim Nguyen,
Here.
Vice Chair Bowie,
Yeah.
Chair Jones.
Here. Okay, we already did oral communications earlier. Takes us on to reorganization 2A. Do I have any motion nominations?
I'll move to keep it the same unless anyone else wants to change it.
I'll second that.
Okay, Madam Clerk, call the vote.
Member Bridegan,
Yes.
Member O'Neill,
Yes.
Member Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Member Klumpenstein,
Yes.
Member Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bowie,
Yes.
Chair Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Thank you. Consent items, just receive and file the minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Move the motion.
And second it, Deidre.
Madam Clerk, call the vote.
Member Bridegan,
Yes.
Member O'Neill,
Yes.
Member Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Member Klumpenstein,
Yes.
Member Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bowie,
Yes.
Chair Jones,
Yes.
and Member Bridegan again.
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Thank you. Any matters from successor agency members? Okay, seeing none, we will adjourn back to City Council. So we'll reconvene City Council. Before we move on to consent items, I'm going to jump to 7C because I was supposed to do that earlier and I just neglected to. So this is just extending courtesy of the floor to council members who were recently reelected if they care to say a few words. And this is primarily within the context that we had to do the swearing in earlier, digitally, not in person, and without really any kind of proper audience. So this just gives sort of a forum if any council members want to make any remarks on their behalf. So let me start with Councilmember John O'Neill.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Congratulations, by the way, on your reelection, and also Councilwoman Kloppenstein and Councilwoman Nguyen on your successful reelections. If you'll indulge me just for a moment, I just had some prepared remarks that I wanted to vent out. My many thanks to the Honorable Judge Chris Fan for taking time out of his busy schedule this week to administer the oath of office to both Councilwoman Kloppenstein and myself. We're so proud of Chris's accomplishments, not only in Garden Grove, but what he's gone on to do as a federal judge and his past service in Garden Grove. So thank you very much, Chris, for taking your time to do that. There are so many people to thank. Obviously, you can't thank everyone by name. But first off, I'm truly honored and humbled to have the voter support, and to represent them for the next 4 years in the city of Garden Grove as their council member. The campaigning is over, and now it's time to get back to work. My many thanks to the men and women of the Garden Grove Police Association. We have the best police department in the county, I believe, if not the state of California. I will always support them so they can continue to do their job and protect all of us here in Garden Grove. Our firefighters, the over 1,000 men and women of the Orange County Professional Firefighters Association, they man our 7 fire stations here in Garden Grove and all the surrounding areas. And they look after us 24/7 whenever we have someone in need or there's a fire. So thank you very much for that. Most importantly, our nonprofit and faith groups that throughout Garden Grove, without their partnership, most of the best things in Garden Grove wouldn't happen if it wasn't for those people, and those things wouldn't take place. For our business folks, whether you're a large business or a small business, we need to support you, and we do, and we support them. And if they're not growing, they're dying. So we all need to support them moving forward. I'd like to thank them. I'd like to thank my friends, my neighbors, my coworkers, my day job that support me in what I do. Their unwavering support. A very special thanks to my mother, Dolores O'Neill. It's her 65th year in the city of Garden Grove. It's her 91st year of life. Thank you for your example of community service and love for others. In closing, last but not least, certainly not least, I'd like to thank my wife, Sylvia, my adult children, Michelle, Stacy, and John, for always supporting me, no matter what crazy endeavor I pursue. I'm sure they would agree with that. So may God continue to bless you. May God continue to bless all the people of Garden Grove. Together we will overcome any challenge that we face. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll yield back. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations, John. Well said. Councilmember Stephanie Klopfenstein.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to congratulate you and my colleagues on your election victories. And as Councilmember O'Neill stated, thank you to Judge Christopher Fan for swearing me in this evening. Obviously, the swearing in wasn't exactly what we had thought it would be, but obviously in these times it was still such an honor. I want to start by thanking the residents of District 5 for once again placing their trust in me and giving me the great opportunity and honor to serve District 5 and all of Garden Grove. I am so greatly honored to be given this opportunity to serve in this capacity again. This is a very special moment for me and my family, and I want to thank my parents and all of my family for their help, their prayers, their love and encouragement. It always gives me strength and helps to see me through. I want to thank my husband, Eric, and my daughter, Emerson. I call her my little chief of staff. I couldn't do any of this without you, without your love and support. You are both my whole world. Elections are definitely not won alone. I had a great deal of help. I had truly an A-team. Together we ran a fantastic campaign, and I want to thank each and every one of you, and you know exactly who each and every one of you are. Thank you for providing me with boots on the ground help, a shoulder to lean on, a listening ear, tons of phone calls and meetings. You brought such amazing creative ideas to the table, but most importantly, you brought friendship. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you to all of the supporters, businesses, donors, stakeholders, for your continued support and for believing in me in 2016 and again now. Rest assured, I will continue to roll up my sleeves and give Garden Grove my best. My roots are deep and my love for this city is very strong, and I will provide a listening ear and a voice for the residents. I live here, I shop here, I play here, I serve here. My husband and I are raising our daughter here. I see what you see. I live the good and the bad with you every day, and I will always be your advocate, your champion, and your friend. Together, we will work to make Garden Grove better for our children and future generations. Thank you.
Well said, Stephanie. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen. I'll get it right one of these.
Soon enough. Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to thank my special guest who administered my oath of office, which is Senator Tom Umberg, representing us here in Garden Grove. I'm beyond honored to have received over 75% of the vote in my district. It has been a very long and interesting 4 years, as I've been a very outspoken person. I've taken stands that haven't always been popular, but I've also worked diligently in pushing a variety of initiatives, not just in my district, but citywide. I'm proud and honored that they overwhelmingly supported me, and I promise to keep working just as hard, if not harder, the next 4 years. Garden Grove is such a large and diverse community, and I hope that we can come together through, previous divisive times and work in the best interest of our residents. I would like to wish congratulations to my colleagues, Councilmember John O'Neill, Councilmember Stephanie Kloffenstein, and Mayor Jones on their victories as well. And to my team who have been through it with me from the very beginning back in 2016, when it was literally maybe just myself and my campaign manager against, the armies that be, and holding it down for me through 2020 as we won this re-election. To my partner, Councilmember David Penaloza from the city of Santa Ana, it's been great to have someone who understands exactly what it means to be a public servant and to give your whole devotion to your city, the community that raised you, and I've been blessed to have him by my side along this journey. And thank you to all of my residents who, believed in me and donated, to the students that gave $5, to the young adults who are making ends meet through COVID, who may have gotten laid off and felt it strong conviction enough to donate to my campaign and help me get reelected. Those small donations are the ones that mean the most, because I know that they could have used it for something else. And so, of course, that adds a little bit more pressure to make sure you do a good job, but I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. We've always been a grassroots campaign, so it's been great to have that. And, I've mentioned before, when I was sworn in, I was elected as the youngest person, and I hope that by the time I term out, we have someone else that can take that title away from me and be the youngest person ever elected. So with that in mind, I would just make a call to action to our residents who are listening right now. Please get active and please apply for commissions. We need that diversity that represents city from district to district. And so hopefully we can all come together, residents, staff, council members, and work together. Congratulations to everyone who just won their re-elections, and thank you so much.
Congratulations, MPT Kim Nguyen. I would just like to say heartfelt thank you to Police Chief Tom DeRay for administering my oath of office and swearing in earlier this evening. Your faith and confidence absolutely means the world to me, so I appreciate you doing that. Also like to thank just the people of Garden Grove for placing this trust and faith in me to continue serving, carrying out this community service hobby or passion for the town that I grew up in, the city that I love. So I enjoy what I do. I'm really excited actually that we still have this same team together. I think we come from different backgrounds, different walks, different ideologies, and yet together collectively we represent this city and all of its diversity. And I think we're all on the same page where it matters and trying to make Garden Grove a better place in our own ways. Looking forward. So I'm blessed to have this team and the accomplishments that we have gotten under our belt in recent years, despite the disruptions of a global health pandemic and everything that's hit us in 2020. I still think the future is very bright for this city. We've got so much innovation in the works, so many great ideas, so many seeds being planted that will sprout in the years to come. And I just can't wait to see that happen. So thank you all, and I appreciate the chance to continue serving. With that, anybody else care to speak? You don't need to. Okay. Thank you. With that, we will go back to consent calendar. And it's recommended that item 3.
Mayor Jones, this is Councilman Pat Bowie. Should I speak at the end at the matter from the council, or should I address and thank you, my supporter at this time?
Please go ahead. Please go ahead at this time. Would be great.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mayor Jones. Well, I would like to first congratulate to the huge win by Mayor Jones, and also to the other council member being reelected, Council Member John O'Neill, Stephanie Kloffenstein, and Kim Nguyen. You guys fought very hard and also win very big. So a huge congratulations to all four of you. I would like to take this a few minutes to also express my appreciation to the support that I received from so many of you, especially from the West Garden Grove, which have shown an increase from about 14–15% on previous election, citywide election, to about double this year. Your support means a lot to me, and also to a lot of people on the Main Street, as well as throughout the city. I think it is also very good, like Mayor Jones had mentioned earlier, that the City Council is very much intact. And I look forward to work with all of you to move our city in the right direction. We may not always agree on everything, but I think we all share the passion to move our city to the right way. And I look forward to work with all of you. And again, thank you all who have placed your trust and your support in me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pat. Okay, we will go back to consent calendar. It's recommended that items 3A through 3J be acted on simultaneously unless anyone would like to pull any items. Do I have any requests to pull? Or else a motion?
I'd like to pull 3E.
Okay. Any others? Can I get a motion for the balance?
I'll move the balance. Kloppenstein.
I'll second it. Brightingham.
Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Brightingham,
Yes.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie, Councilmember
Yes.
Bowie,
Yes.
Councilmember Kloppenstein,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay. Item 3E as requested to be pulled by Councilmember Brightingham.
Yeah, basically, you know, in reading this provision, state law authorizes up to $50,000 for settlements, and we're only raising it to $25,000. I really think we should just comply with state law and go with the 50 because we're going to end up doing this anyway. You know, my thoughts go to the community, people who are actually waiting for a settlement from the city. A lot of them can't work, they can't pay their rent, and you know, delaying the settlement just to get a vote from the council seems kind of silly since the provisions of state law allow to $50,000 anyway. I think we should untie city staff's hands and let them do their jobs. We're going to get the notifications that we always get. We could always have Omar put it in closed session after the notification if we don't, you know, if we have an issue with it. But I would like to raise it from 25 to 50.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Colleagues, any comments or thoughts?
That doesn't, I'm fine with that as well.
I'll
Councilman
second the
Pat Bowie,
motion.
I would be in support of that and would make the second motion. But I think is that John O'Neill that make the second motion?
Yeah, Pat, thanks. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now, just before I vote, I just want to make sure that it's that I think 50,000 with the state ceiling is okay. But I just want to make sure, and maybe Omar can chime in on this, that in the event that there is some special off, that we think that we shouldn't offer that the value that the staff has, put in the report, we could have the opportunity to bring it back to the city council for guidance to staff. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor,
Omar?
members of the City Council. Mayor, members of the City Council, Omar Sandoval, City Attorney. So the resolution provides per state law that the City Council is delegating the authority to staff to settle claims up to $50,000. And the way the resolution reads is that the city manager has the authority to settle up to $50,000, subject to the consent of both the city attorney and the finance director. Actually, let me correct that. The finance director is being authorized to settle claims up to $50,000 with the concurrence of the city manager and city attorney. So even if staff is recommending $50,000 settlement, either the city attorney or the city manager can actually bring the matter to the city council. So, so that's just to clarify. Yes, Councilmember Bowie, if the matter is a special circumstance that requires direction from the city council, it would require a minimum of 3 people to agree to settle for $50,000 before it's actually settled for that amount.
Sure, and I believe all, if not most, if not all of the settlement will be just fine. But just in the event that there is one-off or something that we think that we have some information that we would like to bring that matter to the city council, any one of the city council members would then be able to direct the city manager to put it on the agenda. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's good.
Mr. Mayor, I do have one clarification question of the city attorney.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, if the we raise it to 50. I know staff recommendation was 25. I think that's silly. We should just comply with state law. But you will continue to send us the emails updating us on this stuff, right? So that way we can, if a council member has any heartburn, they could ask for it to be agendized in closed session.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. I think we got a motion and a second.
Okay. Motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please roll call vote.
Councilmember Brightigam,
Yes.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen, Councilmember Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie,
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
and Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
All righty. That concludes consent calendar, takes us on to public hearings. We have one, which is item 4A.
Item 4A is acceptance of the fiscal year 2019-20 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, and Community and Economic Development staff is here to provide the report.
Thank you. This is Nate Robbins, Senior Program Specialist. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. The item before you is the fiscal year 1920 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, or CAPER. We're here tonight to request the City Council conduct a public hearing regarding the fiscal year 1920 CAPER and recommend its transmittal to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. Title I of the National Affordable Housing Act of 1990 requires jurisdictions that receive Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, Home Investment Partnership Program, or HOME, and or Emergency Solutions Grant, or ESG funding to assess the activities implemented during its previous program year through an annual CAPER. The CAPER details how the city carried out the projects and activities identified in the previously approved fiscal year 1920 action plan. The CAPER provides narrative descriptions and financial information on specific activities and evaluates the city's progress toward the priority objectives addressing housing and community needs as outlined in the 5-year consolidated plan. The reporting period for the CAPER is from July 1, 2019 through June 30, 2020. During fiscal year 1920, the city utilized federal funding to expand or preserve affordable housing opportunities, to improve low-income neighborhoods through public infrastructure improvements, and assist special needs groups such as senior citizens, homeless, and those at risk for becoming homeless. The fiscal year 1920 annual action plan was amended to include coronavirus aid, relief, and economic security, or CARES Act funding that was awarded to the city in April of 2020. The CARES Act expenditures and projected performance outcomes are included in the fiscal year 1920. However, accomplishments for the CARES Act funding will not be reported to HUD until the activities are completed or the June 30, 2022 expenditure deadline is reached. The accomplishments shown in the fiscal year 1920 CAPER reflect the activities funded through the city's entitlement grant allocations for fiscal year 1920. Per the HUD-approved citizen participation plan, the city is required to make the CAPER available to the public for review and comment for a minimum of 15 days. A public notice was published in English, Spanish, Vietnamese newspapers announcing the public comment period, which began on November 20th, 2020, and will conclude at the end of tonight's public hearing. One comment was received during the public comment period, which will be included as an attachment to the final CAPER submitted to HUD. Additionally, minor edits will be made to the final document to ensure clarity and accuracy. It's recommended that the council conduct a public hearing to hear and issue comments concerning the fiscal year 1920 CAPER and accept the report and direct its transmission to HUD. This concludes my presentation. I can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Brother Nate. Any questions of Nate or staff before we open the public hearing? Okay, hearing none. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone wishing to speak, or did we receive any comments on this item?
We have no one here to speak, but we did receive a written comments from Mr. Craig Durfee, and he urges the City Council to be more active in expansion of park acreage and park renovations in the city, adding that green space is good for mental health. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, we will close the public hearing and go to deliberations. Any comments or a motion?
Mr. Mayor?
Please go ahead, George.
Yeah, I was going to ask Nate, did this go in front of the Neighborhood Improvement and Conservation Commission for a recommendation?
Yes, sir, it did.
Okay. And, oh, I guess I can't talk about it. Okay, thank you.
This is Councilman O'Neill. I'll move it.
I second it.
Okay, Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bridegan,
Yes.
Councilmember Deidre Witt,
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie,
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
All righty. Thank you. That takes us on to commission and committee matters. 5A, consideration of appointments to the audit committee and outside committees. How do we want to dive into this? Should I just go ahead and read them off one by one and we go through them? Okay. We will start with audit committee. Meets twice yearly in City Hall.
Mr. Mayor, this is
Mayor Jones?
Councilman. Oh, okay.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Go ahead, John.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen, I mean.
I was just going to ask that I have interest in joining this audit committee.
Okay. Councilmember O'Neill.
Oh, I before Kim chimed in, I was just going to move to stay with what we had, but with her interest in it, there we could have some more discussion here, or anybody else want to chime in?
Well, currently we have 3 people on it. Mayor Jones,
Yeah.
Councilman Bowie, and Councilman O'Neill. But this is a internal committee. We could have 4 if we wanted.
I think we're capped, yeah, legal counsel says we're capped at 3. We can't have a
Brown
Brown Act violation, so,
Yeah. All right.
yeah. Yeah.
Is
So
there
it can only be
anybody that's currently a member who doesn't want to be a member?
This is Councilman Fat Bowie. The audit committee very much, we don't do a lot. Most of the audit, most of the analysis is being done by the consultants, and we spend about, a couple hours before she complete the drafts to give her any input into how do we, is there any area that we want her to focus on. And then once that is done, then another meeting to go over the Excel report that she report to us, any risk that she think that the city may want to consider, remediation for it. That's about it. I've been at in this committee for a number of years. So if Councilman Kim Nguyen would like to have some exposure into the work of the audit committee, I would be happy to give it to her.
Oh, very nice. Well, then I'll move, we keep it the same except for changing out Councilman Bowie with Councilman Kim Nguyen.
I second it.
Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Brightingham,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie,
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen.
You'll get used to it, Terry. Thank you, Councilman Bowie, and yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
All right, next up is Association of California Cities, Orange County, ACCOC, and this is just for the Advocacy Committee. I'll point out that Councilmember Stephanie Klopfenstein, I believe, are you on the board? Are you actually on the board?
Yes, I was reelected for another, so I'm on the executive board, yeah.
Right, so thank you, Stephanie, for serving us and representing the city. It's a group that advocates for local control, and I think it's great that we have a seat at that table, and I appreciate that you are actively working on that. So with that, any discussion, but I would kind of suggest that maybe Stephanie should be the primary representative unless there's any conflict in her serving as the board member and also as the advocacy.
I would
But I'll leave
second that.
You guys.
I think we get more bang for the buck if we have someone else on the primary. So she's already in the elected administrative part. That would give us more voice. That would give us more of a voice. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah, okay, good point.
Absolutely.
Mayor Jones, this is Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen. I would agree that I think it would be great to have Stephanie there as the main representative, since she is our main representative, and maintain Councilmember John O'Neill as the alternate, as I believe he serves on, I'm not entirely sure of the title, but some legislative committee. So I think that between the two of them, this is the advocacy committee, so I think it's not really more bang for the buck. I think it's appropriate to assign the folks that are active to that, like the League of California Cities, where there's events, any of us are able to attend them because we're dues paying members. So we've attended a number of ACCOC events pre-COVID when it was open. So I don't necessarily think it needs to be additional council members. I would like to motion for Stephanie to be the representative and Councilmember Klopfenstein, and alternate as Councilmember John O'Neill.
I don't want to step on any toes.
I'll second that if she wants to do it.
Okay. I'm fine with doing that. I think there's opportunities within ACCOC for everyone that's an elected that wants to have an opportunity or a seat at the table. It's a very open group. There's all sorts of seminars and opportunities to go to Washington, D.C. and to the state capitol and to sit on different committees and so forth. So I think that the opportunities, irregardless of whether you sit on this committee, I think abound. So I don't think it would make that big of a difference. So I'd be happy to serve if that's what my colleagues wish.
Great.
And Mr. Mayor, this is Mr. O'Neill.
Go ahead, please. Mr. O'Neill.
I appreciate Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen's recommendation there, but I'm fully open to have Stephanie as the lead representative and Councilman Bowie if he wants to be the alternate. I think I could still do the things I'm doing. I'm not directly connected in any way to the association, but I do pay attention to what's going on. So I'm not opposed to Councilman Bowie being the alternate. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Sure, I would be happy to do that, but I served in this committee before. Just want to illustrate that the primary representative is just so that we all at least always have someone at the meeting. But any one of us who would like to come to be at the meeting or come to the meeting, whether it will be in Sacramento or in DC, we are welcome to, as long as we do not violate the Brown Act, which is at most only 3 of us being there at a time. So I think it's not a big deal that we have to be on the board representing Garden Grove, but the person who will be the primary lead is the one who has to commit her or his time to be at most of the meeting. So I think it is having said that, thank you, John. If I could be of any help to our city, then I would be glad to join Stephanie to be there.
All right, I'll make a substitute motion then. Stephanie and Thad as alternate.
This is Councilman O'Neill. I'll second that. Yeah.
Okay. Madam Clerk, call to vote.
Councilmember Brightingham,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie,
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen.
Ooh, you did it. Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay, League of California Cities, LOCC, Orange County Division. Kind of similar comments as I made last time. This is another group that's more Sacramento-based, but operates on the same vein as ACCOC in the sense that its primary underlying charter is to protect cities or to advocate for local control, cities to be able to control their own destiny and not have the state or federal mandate down upon us what we can and can't do. So another worthwhile group for the city to be involved in. I want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen for her active participation in this group. And I'm not sure exactly where you're at, but I think you serve, are you on the board or you at least serve on certain committees? I know League of Cities has a active committee structure.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. I'd like to see this stay the same, as I currently serve on the board and will hopefully be in one of the executive positions as soon as we can rally the group together to do a virtual voting. And I serve on one of the league's the statewide committees, and Councilmember Tu Han Nguyen is very active with the API caucus. So I would like to see that stay the same for the purpose of continuity.
Well, I'll motion Kim Nguyen as representative and Tu Ha as the alternate.
I second it.
Pick one, Madam Clerk. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Brightingham,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie,
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
and Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay, Orange County Public Library Advisory Board. Colleagues.
I think we skipped one, no?
Yeah, it's
That's
agendized. It's agendized separately, George. So we're going to do that under 5B.
If I may, on the Library Advisory Board, I'm currently the representative.
Because it's a resolution. Sorry about that.
Pardon me.
Sorry.
No, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. No, it's fine. If we're on to the OC lab, I have served on that since, I guess, 2018. I'd be more than happy to nominate Councilwoman Tuha Nguyen for that position, as she also has a library in her district, if she is interested. And if I would be happy to also serve as the alternate, or again, if John would prefer, or Councilmember O'Neill, if he'd prefer to stay on as alternate, that's fine too. I have a library in my district, as does Councilwoman Tuha Nguyen, so we can discuss further.
This is Councilman O'Neill. I would agree with that, Tuha and Stephanie. Yeah. So I'll make a motion to for the representative to be. I'm sorry, Stephanie, that you are going to be the alternate.
Sure, if that's all right.
Yeah, and Tuha could be the representative. So that's a motion.
I'll second
And
it.
I'll second. Okay.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
May John speak to her?
Oh, please go ahead, Tuha.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Stephanie, for the nomination. I will accept it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Brightigan,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie,
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Thank you. Next one listed is Orange County Transportation Authority Board. I just want to ask General Counsel, because I'm the chairman of that board, and I was appointed through the city selection committee meeting. So I was appointed by the mayors of Santa Ana within the first district and whatever. So I'm not sure exactly why this appears on our agenda, but just curious.
Yeah, I don't think that the city council actually appoints a representative to OCTA. It's a regional appointment.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So moving right along. Orange County Sanitation Board. Colleagues.
I'll move we keep it the same.
O'Neill, I'll second it.
Yeah.
Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Brightigan,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie,
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay, Orange County Vector Control District Board. I'll say that.
O'Neill, I will move
Go
to
ahead.
approve Klopfenstein as
Yeah.
representative.
I second
even a
that. I
gap.
have no interest in being the bug lady.
Yeah, please. You can't take that. You can't take that away from me. Come on.
She's got 7 motions. Okay.
Automatically.
Yeah, right. Okay, Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Brightigan,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie,
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, Sanitary District Liaison Committee. Colleagues.
Well, I've been the representative of this since 2018, and we have yet to meet. So I don't mind doing it. I don't mind doing it again.
I don't mind not doing it again.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen, I'll motion to keep it the same.
I second it.
O'Neill.
Thank you, Kuha.
Okay, Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bridegan,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen,
Yes,
Councilmember Bowie,
Yes.
Councilmember Kloffenstein,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
and Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Santa Ana River Flood Protection Agency.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
on this, you know, this one does actually meet a lot. I've been representative again since 2018. However, the only area that it affects is District 6. It's literally the Santa Ana River Flood Protection and a quarter mile, I believe, into it. It addresses all the flood protection measures going on upstream to make sure we don't get flooded down here, and it directly impacts District 6. So I really strongly think Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen should head that. So I'd like to make that motion.
Let's ask, Kim, are you available to make those meetings? If you look at the time slots.
That's a really good question. I believe so. Given the time allotment later in the evening, most of my SCAG and league meetings are in the morning, so I should be able to. I'll accept it. Thank you, Councilmember Brigham.
Yeah. O'Neill, I'll second that.
All right, Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bridegan,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen,
yes,
Councilmember Bowie,
Yes.
Councilmember Kloffenstein,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
and Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
All right, Southern California Association of Governments, or SCAG, and this is for the Regional General Assembly. This is another one I'd say, this is an important subgroup. SCAG is largely funded through OCTA, and it's a good group of folks that gets creative with looking into regional planning issues and even has the propensity to provide funding for active transportation and grants for events and other things like that. So I just want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen for her active involvement in this group, and would suggest that if she's inclined to stay on, that we let her keep doing her thing.
Mayor Jones, I would appreciate staying on, as it took me 4 years to get onto OCOG and simultaneously on SCAG committees. I would like to be consistent in, now that I've made some headway, and a lot of these committees I serve on, about 5, that I stay on to be consistent.
I'll second it.
I second it. Councilman Fatboy?
All right, Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bridegan,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen,
yes,
Councilmember Bowie,
Yes.
Councilmember Kloffenstein,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
and Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
All right, West Orange County Water Board.
Mr. Mayor, on this one, again, I was on it from 2018. Literally, this only affects District 1, this water board. It basically is the 2 water pipes that go through Huntington Beach, down the freeway, and then into West Garden Grove. So it you know, pretty much only affects West Garden Grove. So I'd be honored to stay on as a representative.
I move
Mayor
to
Jones,
make it the same.
I just wanted to say that I forfeit the alternate position and potentially have a council member closer to District 1 take that spot.
Yeah, I was going to suggest either Councilman Bowie or myself, O'Neill, as an alternate.
I think it might be better for O'Neill because I think one of the flash stations is right on the border of our districts.
Yeah. I'm not
That
opposed
makes
to that.
sense. That makes sense, a lot of sense. So District 1 and District 2 are much closer. If anything, it will be District 3, not District 4. So I would move the motion to, or substitute an alternate motion to put, Councilman Bradingham, and alternate would be John O'Neill.
I'll second it.
All right, Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Brightigan,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie,
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
All righty, thank you. That now takes us on to item 5B, which is adoption of a resolution. That's why this one was separated, is because it requires a resolution. So adoption of a resolution appointing a city.
Excuse me, Mayor Jones, I didn't want to interrupt, but did you want to change your membership for the ad hoc committee for the Willowy Golf Course site?
We can. I saw that, but I briefly asked legal counsel and they said it's not necessarily something we need to bring up at this time since there's nothing actively going on.
Thank you.
Okay, so item 5B. Go ahead.
Mayor Jones, does that mean we are dissolving it, or does that mean we keep it the same?
I think we just leave it the same, and we could always change it at any given time if or when it comes back in play. It was something that we created an ad hoc committee in response to our neighboring city of Santa Ana wanting to create ad hoc committees at that time frame. And that has now, or at least we're on a hiatus, I guess, from that now because we're deeply engaged in the SLA process that we're going through. So it's not particularly relevant right now. And if or when it ever does become relevant again, then we can address it at that time.
So right now we just keep it the same, but just inactivate it, or what does that mean? I do not have a very clear understanding of what you want to do.
I would suggest just leave it the same and not necessarily take any action on it at this time.
Okay.
Okay, item 5B, adoption of a resolution appointing a city council member to the Orange County Fire Authority Board of Directors.
I'll move we keep John O'Neill in place.
I'll second.
Mayor Jones and Council Member John O'Neill. I understand. After talking to a couple of people, council members, I truly understand that you and the OCFA board would like to keep the existing representative of the board very much as close to original as possible because of the need for continuity during COVID. And I am okay with that. However, as you all know, I took very strong interest in advocate for the move to OCFA because I have witnessed and experienced many of my friends who died of the heart attack because the ambulance services, which always have to be accompanied with the fire engine, was just a couple of minutes late. They did a good job. They did respond within 5 or 6 minutes. However, had they came a minute earlier, my friend, who was only 50 plus at the time, would not have died and would not left their children in pain. And so when I advocate for the move to OCFA, I have a strong interest in working with OCFA so that people who are in need of emergency ambulance and fire and firefighters would be able to get it. And in 2018, I was saddened because I hoped that I would be given that first cut. However, I was okay with John O'Neill to be taking the lead. Since I have so much interested in working with the OCFA board, in making sure that the kind of program that I would like to spearhead would be, the response within 4 or 5 minutes would be possible. Is there any way that we could approach this with a slightly different possibility, like John, in response to the COVID continuity during COVID times, would take another years. And then after that, in 2021, we take a look at that so that I can work with the OCFA board to see if the things that I would like to implement can be implemented. Is that within the city council power to do, or it had to be a 2 years appointment?
I could comment on that. This is Councilman O'Neill. So I appreciate the motion by Councilman Bright again, and the second, I believe that was by Stephanie. I could tell you we're about a little over 15 months into the 10-year contract with OCFA, and most of this year has been virtual and COVID. But on the OCFA, we've made a lot of progress. I can tell you it's a huge learning curve for someone. Anyone really to be on that size of a regional board, but I've learned a lot, and we've actually made a lot of progress. We've settled 2 labor negotiation contracts. We've dealt with the fires. We've contracted to have airplanes with infrared vision, and we have helitankers to put out fires quickly. I think going forward, I think we approach this every year. As the council can appoint whoever they want. I know going forward for me, if I'm appointed, that perhaps we could put more information on the website for just a specific tab for Orange County Fire Authority. I could keep all the council members updated after each meeting and get everybody involved. It's a village over there. It's a huge organization. Right now, I'm looking to be appointed on a committee for negotiating, keeping the cost down for contract cities and things like that. So that's what's happening right now. With that said, I really think whoever's on this board, I just happen to be appointed first, but whoever does get it on in the future, it's a very involved board, and I would recommend it has at least a 2-year appointment, because just like any other regional board, there's a lot of moving parts. That's all I have.
Right. The only reason that I bring it up, Mayor Jones and John, can I comment, or the colleagues? The reason that I bring this up is, OCFAs or, firefighter and ambulance services are very, very important to me. Probably the most important issue that I want to address. And that's why during 2016 and 2017, I was one of the, champions to lead the move to OCFA, because I believe that it would help us in the end. Now, having said that, with only 2 years left in the city council, because I'm termed out in 2022, I can no longer run for re-election. That is why I would like to see the issues that are most important to me would be able to, that I would be able to have an opportunity to work on it. I understand the need for continuity during the COVID, but, having said that, I was hopeful, John, that at least you would allow me an opportunity to work on it. at least for 2022, before I am termed out and can no longer be in the city council.
Mayor Jones?
It's just something that are so important to me.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen, please.
Thank you. I would like to support Councilmember John O'Neill in continuing out as the OCFA board representative. I'm a strong believer in continuity, especially during these times of COVID, for stability. And I would also note that OCFA, requested to keep him on for the sake of continuity. As someone who was an extreme critic of going to OCFA and read that contract with a fine-tooth comb and pointed out some things that I don't think a lot of people caught on as far as, workers' comp, et cetera. I also was very interested in being on the board to keep that very critical, mind while serving on that board. But ultimately, we all agreed that we thought John would be great at it. I believe that he served in the NorthNet Fire Training Joint Powers Authority, so it would be good to have him there for continuity of something that he's already worked on. I would urge that my colleagues, adhere and listen to what OCFA was recommending for all of us to do, and that we support John, Councilmember O'Neill, in staying on as OCFA board.
If I may, quickly, Councilmember Kloppenstein here.
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I think, when we're looking at obviously how a lot of these boards are interacting, things are very different because of COVID-19. We're not meeting in person. We don't have the synergy that we can build. We don't have that camaraderie. We're not face to face. Everything feels a bit different. Some of these boards do have weighty agendas and do have very important information. So I think that there's still a lot to learn and a lot to grasp and a lot to grow on. And I think OCFA is a prime example of that. Where we're going to be in light of COVID in a year's time, in 2 years' time, I don't know that any of us exactly have the answer to that. So, maybe tonight it's about supporting John going forward. After a year, he can always report back, tell us how things are going, see where things are at, and see where we're at just as a county and so forth. So maybe for tonight, just for the sake of moving this forward, maybe that's kind of what we can sort of have in the back of our minds for a year's time.
Sounds good. We've got a motion.
Mayor Jones, I would be in support of Councilmember Kloppenstein. I think that is the right thing to do. So, as long as there is a possibility that we may revisit this after a year to see where it is. And at that time, if John feels that he is in the middle of something that he needs to complete, that is okay with me. But I just want to make sure that, my colleagues and Mayor Jones understand that this is an issue that are very important to me. In fact, it is the most important aspect of issue that I want to address, because I have so many, quite a few friends that died because of heart attack. So I would be in support of voting John for another 2 years, with the understanding that perhaps, in a year's term, John would take a look at that and see if there is a possibility for me to, come in and work on issues that are so important to me.
Great, thank you. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
I also one thing I want to address is I supporting John for the OCFA. But also one thing is, no matter any of us representing whatever committee, but we represent the city. So, for example, Councilmember Fat Boy has some ideas. We can always share. You can always share with John, so he can be our voice and address that with the OCFA. I mean, like I said, it's any committee that any one of us representing, we always take into consideration and listen to our constituents, listen to our colleagues. Any idea is always, appreciated. And that's how we work. So, Councilman Fat Boy, if that issue is very important to you, bring up to John so he can speak on behalf of you, or on behalf of City of Garden Grove. I think that's also one of the things we can make things happen.
Yes. I'm not disagree with you, Tuha, but sometimes, on complex issue, you have to be directly involved in order to be able to steer and know what needs to be done, other than just, give some ideas to John, because you don't have the close proximity to all of the issues that are going on there. That's also I feel it's important. However, we could always come back and visit this issue in a year's term, and just want to put in the record so that if in a year's term John and I sit down together and we think that it is okay, then at least we could entertain it.
Okay, thank you. I think we've. Well, go ahead.
Mayor Jones, this Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen, I want to just get clarification because I'm not comfortable voting for this as a one-year appointment. I'm voting for John O'Neill. No, that's not what I meant. I'm still speaking. I'm voting.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim.
It's a two-year appointment.
Sorry.
I wasn't done speaking.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim, please speak.
Thank you. I just wanted to get clarification because that's not what I understood from Councilmember Klopfenstein's comments. I think that was something else that she was stating about a year post-COVID. I'm voting. I want to be very clear with the city clerk and with what this motion is. I am voting to appoint Councilmember John O'Neill for a 2-year term. I'm not voting to bring this back in a year.
Oh, I did not mean to bring it back as a voting item. No, that's not how I meant that. I'm just talking about if we're looking at the COVID landscape and where we might be in a year's time, 2 years' time, so forth. But I believe tonight we're voting on this as a 2-year appointment, if I understand that correctly.
And that's my understanding as well, Mayor Jones and colleagues. We are voting for 2 years. All I'm saying is that if there is a possibility that in a year term, if conditions change, then we could entertain a possibility that we could reevaluate it. That's all I'm asking. I'm not saying that we are voting only for a 1-year term. Okay.
Clear as mud?
Clear in that I don't want to revisit this in a year, regardless of what happens with COVID. My vote is for 2 years, and it's for Councilmember John O'Neill.
I believe Councilmember Breitigam made the motion and Councilmember Klopfenstein made the second. Is that correct?
Correct, and my motion was for a 2-year term.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Councilmember Breitigam,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie,
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Congratulations, Councilman O'Neill. Thanks for representing us well on that board and to continue to do so.
Thank you.
That takes us on to item 6, items for consideration, 6A.
Item 6A is a report on the status of the Surplus Land Act process for the Willowick Golf Course. And Ms. Lisa Kim, the Assistant City Manager, is here to give the report.
Thank you, Ms. Pomeroy. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. The item before you this evening is a report on the status of the Surplus Land Act for the Willowick Golf Course. Following council action earlier this year in which Willowick was declared surplus land, staff proceeded with implementation of the Surplus Land Act. As summarized in your staff report this evening, issuance of a notice of availability was conducted pursuant to Government Code Section 54222. It was completed, followed by the city's receipt of notice of interest by housing sponsors. We have also received clarification of the initial proposal, which determined 3 housing sponsors are proposing to develop affordable housing as part of their proposal and recommended to be negotiated concurrently. The 3 housing sponsors are Willowy Community Partners, comprised of City Ventures, Jamboree Housing, and Prime Store. The next housing sponsor is the Trust for Public Land, State Coastal Conservancy, and Clifford Beards Housing, and lastly, McWinney Land LLC and Wigland Housing. A comprehensive website has been developed to provide information about the city's Surplus Land Act process, the housing sponsor responses, and proposals for Willowick. Staff is requesting council proceed pursuant to the Surplus Land Act. This concludes my staff report, and staff is available for questions.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Any comments, questions, or a motion?
Mayor Jones, CC Councilman Pat Bowie. During the last couple months of 2019, in closed session meetings, various closed session meetings, I have expressed a lot of reservation and concern about rushing through the Willowick project may put us at litigation risk. And I was assured that that shouldn't be a concern. And if anyone suing us, we most likely will prevail and win. The reality is we did not. We were sued, and we lost the case, and have to settle a very big, settlement payment in hundreds of thousands of dollars. Again, I want to make sure if we move forward with this project, what kind of risk assessment are we putting in place so that it would not put us at additional litigation. Now, obviously, this time we are more careful, and we follow the Land Act, surplus, the Land Surplus Act. But how do we know for sure? The fact that we follow the Surplus Land Act process doesn't always mean that we will not be facing any lawsuit. And I am concerned about in November 2019, I raised the issue about possibly litigation, and we may lose that lawsuit, and we did. So how is it that we can be certain that this time we are not going to face that again? This will be the question for Omar, please.
Council members, this is Omar Sandoval. I mean, you can't ever, guarantee you're not going to have any lawsuits, but all we're doing in this particular case is following the law as the state legislature has drafted it. And that's all we can do, just follow the letter of the law.
If we do not proceed with this, would we be in any potential lawsuits?
You mean if we terminate? You mean if we terminate the process?
Yeah, if we terminate this process, let's just say if we are not interested in selling or leasing the land, and we want to stop, is there any litigation risk involved?
I don't really know the answer to that. You do have 3 proposers that spent some time putting together proposals. My position would be that they took the risk of the city not moving forward and taking the property off the market, and but there's always a risk too. At this point, the city council had directed us early January to follow the law, and that's what we're doing. And we're bringing this item to let the council know where we are in the process. We did take a few pauses due to COVID-19, but I think that we're prepared to move forward. And again, the recommendation is being recommended that we continue and you authorize us to move forward pursuant to the law, pursuant to the Surplus Land Act.
Okay. A couple more clarification, please. In early 2020 or maybe late 2019, I'm not sure exact date. It's either December 2019 or January 2020. We were sued due to not following the Surplus Land Act, and we lost a case, and we have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars, because of that lawsuit. What concerns me is if we walk down this path deeper and further, that we may be sued again, rather than at this point, say, well, let's stop it. Thank you for the initial interest and proposal. Let's stop it. And if we ever need to do that again, then we would pursue it at a different time. So what makes me feel uneasy is we already get sued because of this willowy project, and we already lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. If I remember correctly, it's almost $500,000. I do not want to subject us to another lawsuit that become expensive if the negotiation turn out to be not running into litigation complication and we're being sued again.
Mayor, members of the City Council, at this point, we don't have any threat of litigation moving forward, and I'm not sure what kind of threat that would be, given that the recommendation is that we continue to follow the law. But I can assure you that if we do get a threat of litigation, I would let the City Council know, and we can make a decision at that time.
We got a lot of people writing in, the same folks from the Rise Up Willowy, which team up with the Kennedy Foundation, who sue us. I saw a lot of opposition or concern, this demand and that demand, very much similar to what we saw during 2019. So it's just concerning me that if we are not careful and think this thing through and we rush through it, I don't want to run into any other lawsuit 6 months or years from now that someone get mad at us and then sue us again. Basically that's just what makes me so uneasy, because I had concern about it, and I raised it up a couple of times during various closed sessions, and I was assured that don't worry about it. There will be if there is any lawsuit, we will not losing it, but in fact we lost.
Okay, Mayor, so member of City Council, I want to first of all remind you that under the government code, closed session discussion cannot be discussed in open session unless the council by majority vote approves the disclosure of confidential closed session information. So that's one. I want to make sure we don't violate Government Code 54963, which says closed session discussion.
I did not go into the detail. Is that right? And is that okay? Stay off very generally.
Better to stay away from that.
So that's one. And again, I want to reiterate that in the event that there is a threat of litigation, normally, you don't get a lawsuit without an actual threat of litigation. In that event, I would be reporting to the city council, and the city council will have an opportunity at that time to decide whether to continue with the process or not. The law has changed substantially. This law now is not only enforceable by litigation, but the state of California Housing and Community Development Department has authority to enforce it. And all I can tell you is that we have been in communication with HCD all along, asking for clarification and asking for direction on moving forward on this process. So the process that we're taking is a process that we have double-checked with HCD that we are doing it correctly, at least in our view and HCD's view. And if there's any questions, again, we would be advising the council at that time.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead, George.
Yeah, I kind of see Councilman Bowie's, heartache on, we do have to be diligent and protecting our taxpayers on potential lawsuits. And so I kind of get his point there. But what gets me is, the lack of information shared with the council on the handful of offers that we have received. I think they just posted on the website today, or maybe yesterday, for the general public to take a look at. Really, it's only like 3.5 if you count the county offer as a offer, and only one of them is really, of interest. That gives me real cause for concern. That the lack of, when we did this initially in 2019, we had a lot of people hopping, and now basically we just have one. And George, realistically,
can I hold you for 1 second, because I think you're getting out over your skis. You may be exercising your opinion, but I think we're proposing to follow the letter of the law and go through the Surplus Land Act process. We currently have no threat of litigation. So with all due respect, Councilmember Bowie, I think you're looking at it sideways. And we're following the letter of the law, going through the Surplus Land Act process. We've received 3 offers, and the item in front of us tonight is to commence good faith negotiations with all 3 of those potential offers. I think we should go through a proper legal process and take it very seriously and follow the letter of the law. That would be my recommendation. And I think the comments being made are what could expose us to potential litigation, not taking the staff recommended action. So I would suggest everybody kind of cool their jets and get in line with the hard work and diligence that our staff and legal counsel has done to bring this forward, and suggest that we move forward with commencing this process to the letter of the law according to the Surplus Land Act process.
Right. And Mr. Mayor, this is Councilman O'Neill.
Go ahead, John.
I just wanted to clarify with the attorney, the item before us is to accept a report on the status, and that's pretty much it going forward with the process. So I'm a little skeptical to keep talking about this issue. We either vote on the item to file the report, or there's some other sort of action here, which I don't think would have any traction. So, that's all I have. Am I wrong? Right. Am I wrong on that?
No, to be fair, the city council at any point during the process can decide it no longer wishes to dispose of the property and can direct staff to stop the process or stop negotiating. So all we're doing at this point is reporting to the city council the fact that we have these offers. There is one offer that was for parks and open space purposes that we thought had been revised or dropped out, and with the comments that you got today and the letters and the comments from some of the individuals that sent comments, at least the Trust of Public Land is indicating that their proposal for parks and open spaces still stands. And under the law, we would have to negotiate with them on that particular proposal as well, not just on the housing part of it. So which is why our recommendation was changed from the staff report to actually move forward pursuant to the Surplus Land Act. So if we go back and ask for clarification on all the proposals, and it turns out that we have a proposal that is solely for parks and open space, and the law gives them super priority, then we'll give them super priority. Again, our recommendation is to continue to move forward pursuant to the Surplus Land Act, follow the letter of the law, and come to an end under the process. And eventually, we will be advising and making recommendations to the City Council as we go along in the negotiation process.
Council, what is the action that's being requested tonight then?
The action tonight is to authorize staff to basically the city manager or his designees to commence the 90-day good faith negotiation with the proposals and proposers who have notified us that they're interested in acquiring either the land or a lease.
And Mr. Mayor and council members, Scott Stiles, city manager. So the 90 days will keep our staff pretty busy over most of the winter and spring. We've got a lot on our plate, as all of the council members know, with a lot of things going on with COVID and trying to think of our business community and everything else and people that are struggling. So I would not expect this item to even come back before the council probably until the spring sometime. So, this is just going through the process, and we've got a lot of work to do on that, in addition to a number of other items before the staff.
Thank you. I would like to make the motion as articulated by legal counsel.
Mayor Jones, should I wait for a second before I bring up some additional question for Omar?
Yes, please. Do I have a second?
Councilman O'Neill, second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Fat.
Okay. Omar, what wasn't clear for me, and that's why I'm very nervous about voting yes or voting no. You mentioned that there's another group that want to give open space, parks and this and that, in addition to low-income housing. So, and you also mentioned the fact that according to the Surplus Land Act, we may have to give them super priority. What does that mean? And if we, let's say, if we don't want to do it, can we be sued?
So under the Surplus Land Act, when a public agency wishes to dispose of land or lease land, and it has now, you have to declare a surplus and then notify housing sponsors and other public agencies. The other public agencies are state and county and city park and special districts. If the property is used for open space or is zoned open space, they get first priority if they want to continue to use the land for parks and recreational purposes. In other words, if you have a public agency that is disposing of land that is open space and another public agency wants to take it over and continue the open space use, then that would be first priority. Under the Surplus Land Act, it requires a negotiate in good faith for 90 days. If you come to terms, then you can dispose of the land. If you don't come to terms, then you're done with the negotiations, and then you can go on to the next set of priorities. The higher level priority under the Surplus Land Act, second to open space when the land is currently used as open space, is housing. And in fact, the California Department of Housing Community Development, when they issued their draft guidelines, they actually wrote the guidelines for priority for housing purposes. So it just means that there's a priority in who we get to negotiate first before we go on to negotiate with the next level of proposers. So because Santa Ana has zoned Willowick as open space, a public agency that provides park and open space recreational uses has first priority to try and acquire the land. Nothing in the Surplus Land Act says that in the end we have to sell it. It just says that we have to, in 90 days, have good faith negotiations for a mutually acceptable price and terms.
Let's just say we have quite a few proposals, just for the sake of so that I can understand it.
Okay, can I?
Hold on one sec. Go ahead, legal counsel.
Well,
please.
I just want to clarify.
This.
Yeah, let me just clarify that we've already sent a notification to hundreds of parties that are listed under HCD and the state and the county. And we got initially 12 proposals or inquiries. Then we follow up with correspondence asking for clarification. And of those 12, we got responses from 4. And then from the 4, the county of Orange was one of them. They clarified that they're not actually interested in acquiring the land, but they're interested in working with a proposer that acquires the land. So we provided that information to the proposers that were left in the running, so to speak. And what we have now are 3 actual proposals, and the Trust for Public Land actually is, submitted a dual proposal. So they had an option 1 and an option 2. Option 1 is working with the California Coastal Conservancy to acquire the land for open space purposes. And option 2 is a joint proposal for open space and housing with Clifford Beers Housing. And so today, under the law, we only have 4 proposals totals to entertain.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, George.
So I was interrupted when I was talking last time, so I want to kind of finish my statement. I do see a little bit of grief with the few offers that we have. It seems kind of strange. But also elaborating on Councilman Bowie's, statement with legal issues. Right now, and I think, Scott just said it himself, staff is very, very busy, and we're in COVID. A lot of staff isn't even coming into work. A lot of them are at home, telecommuting. There's just so much potential for a mistake or something to happen right now. I don't necessarily think we need to rush into this right now. Maybe wait till next year and start this process when everybody's at work. And so that's kind of where I was going. I'm not necessarily sold that we even need to sell the land anymore, to be honest with you. I'm on the fence on that now even. So, with that being said, that's my thoughts.
Thank you. I'll remind that we do have a motion and a second. I would strongly personally urge that we follow through on this legal process that was sort of put upon us by the creation of the Surplus Land Act, which came into effect at the beginning of this year, and that we've been diligently following to the letter of the law throughout this year. So I would suggest that we proceed to follow through on that, and then during that process and or after that process, we can make whatever decisions we ultimately want to make with keeping it, selling it, and under what terms, and leasing it, or whatever. But I would say now is not the time to race to decisions. I would say now is the time to follow through with the process and have these discussions when we get deeper into the good faith negotiation aspect of the process.
Mr. Mayor, it's O'Neill. I'll call for the question.
Yeah, please go ahead. Okay, Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Brightigan,
No.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Deidre Nguyen,
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie,
No.
Councilmember Klopfenstein,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 5 yes votes with council members Brightingham and Bowie voting no.
Okay, thank you. That takes us on to matters. We do have a couple things listed. One we already took earlier, but we're on to 7A, which is a presentation of the sixth housing element cycle and proposed land use alternatives as requested by City Manager Scott Stiles.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, council members, as you know, this is the housing element that our planning and economic development staff have been working very closely on. They've had meetings with the Planning Commission and some surveys that you're going to be hearing about. So this is, I wanted to give them an opportunity to bring you up to speed on where we're at and what next steps are coming. So at this point, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Assistant City Manager Lisa Kim and her staff.
Thank you, Mr. Stiles. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. The presentation this evening is to provide a status report of the city's sixth housing element cycle that began in August 2020 with a series of public engagement efforts led by the planning team and the city's consultant of MIG. Part of the housing element update presentation will highlight potential strategies and approaches which were created based on feedback received from the community and to develop a plan to meet the state's RHNA number allocation. I will now turn it over the presentation to our project planner, Chris Chung, and the city's consultant, Laura Stetson, who will provide the overview of the presentation.
Thank you, Lisa, and good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight's activities will include a status report of the city's housing element update, a summary of the city's public engagement efforts, along with a presentation for discussion of the proposed land use alternatives available to assist the city of Garden Grove in achieving its RHNA allocation of 19,122 housing units as deemed required by the state. I'd like to now hand it over to the city's consulting team, MIG, Laura Stetson, who have assisted the city in these grand efforts to update the housing element.
Thank you, Chris. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, we appreciate being with you this evening. We've got a presentation that I hope to get through in about 20 minutes. I know you've had a long evening up to this point, but we've got some pretty heady issues to discuss. And so I will go through the slides fairly quickly until we get to the point where we want to talk about some land use options that are being presented to you. I know you all have copies of the presentation in front of you. There are a lot of words on the slides. We have no intent at all to read all those words, but do want to get to the discussion piece as quickly as possible. So slide number 2, and I'm assuming you're all moving along with the slides that have been provided to you. Chris, if you could hold on just a sec, I am having some technical difficulties. I think we're okay now. The agenda, as Chris indicated, is to talk about what we've been through, to talk to the public and reach out to the community about the housing element update, and talk to them about how to address this regional housing needs assessment, or the RHNA. And then have an interactive discussion about this various sites to talk to you about the appeal that the city did file of the RHNA allocation that had been given. And then of course have make this available for public comments. So Chris, before we talk about public engagement, I think you wanted to, on the next slide, you had just a short introduction that you wanted to give. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Laura. Yeah, I'd like to just briefly summarize the public outreach efforts conducted thus far. From the outset, I believe it goes without saying that, public engagement has been one of, if not the most important element of the process, and it will continue to be the primary focus as we move forward. The city first created a comprehensive public engagement plan to outline a roadmap for the city for effective engagement with the community with strategies, tools, and methods to inform, educate, and engage community stakeholders throughout the process. And to this point, Garden Grove has conducted extensive community outreach as identified in the public engagement and outreach handout provided to the council and posted on the city's website. Garden Grove has developed and regularly maintained the Housing Element website dedicated to this update at ggcity.org/housing-elements. And the website is updated regularly with educational information, flyers, news, and surveys, as well as ways for the community to stay engaged and connected. Garden Grove has also developed a Housing Element 101 video produced by our GGTV3 folks. It is an informational animated video that explains the housing element and RENA process and how they apply to the Garden Grove community. The video is available in Spanish, Vietnamese, Korean, and English. And it is available on YouTube by searching for Housing Element 101 Garden Grove. The outreach process began with intimate stakeholder interviews and focus group meetings with housing and affordable housing developers, service providers, housing and non-housing advocacy groups, the business community, and most importantly, the general public. The first community survey was available in the early part of the process and available in English, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Korean. And the survey was available online, and in-person outdoor surveys were also conducted at various community centers in the city, with COVID precautions taken to protect staff and the participants. MIG will expand on the details of this survey later in its presentation. We have worked closely with the city's Office of Community Relations to conduct additional public engagement outreach activities, which so far have included individual fact sheets, digital sign advertisements around the city, multiple city publications and water bill mailouts, which are direct mail to 32,000 recipients, news releases, community calendars, newsletters such as the Vietnamese newsletter, radio public service announcements, and outreach to city organizations such as Residents and Friends of Garden Grove Neighborhood Watch, Garden Grove Chamber, the Vietnamese Chamber, Hispanic Chamber, and the Korean Chamber Federation and Senior Association, and others. Social media outreach has also been very successful thus far through outlets such as Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and Nextdoor. For example, through Facebook, Garden Grove has amassed 27,917 people reached and 2,732 engagements. On Instagram, Garden Grove has totaled nearly 500 likes on several posts. And these total numbers and engagements continue to rise each day. The second community online survey is available now to the public through January 12, 2021, and is also available in 4 languages. Extensive efforts are being conducted to promote the survey, and again, MIG will go into further detail about this second survey. All in all, it should be noted that public outreach and engagement are vital to the success of this process, and the input we receive from the community and its stakeholders will help shape the final product. This is an ongoing effort that will be a daily focus for the city, and it will continue to be so. And I'd like to now hand it back over to MIG, Laura, for the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. If we could turn to slide number 5, I want to indicate some of the groups that Chris mentioned that the city had focus group interviews with. Not only did we interview each of the council members, but there were a number of community groups who sat in groups and discussed among themselves many of the housing issues, and summaries of these are all available via the website. Slide number 6 shows you how we were recording using, these were all online interactions that we had, and we were using an interactive live tool called Mural to take down notes as people were indicating what their ideas were. And so these were all recorded and again can be read by anybody in the community. Slide 7 identifies some of the key points that were indicated by housing advocates, and you have this in front of you, and this is also available to anybody who would like to see what the results of these interviews were. Slide 8 indicates that we did talk directly with many housing developers who have interests in Garden Grove, and they indicated that they'd like to have greater flexibility, they'd like collaborative solutions, and really to pave the way for affordable housing in the community. Advocacy groups on slide number 9 indicated that there needed to be a focus on seniors and youth and provide a continuum of housing support. So not just providing the housing, but providing means for people to get into that housing and to have jobs that would allow them to stay in that housing. Slide 10 shows some of the takeaways from the neighborhood and homeowners associations to develop housing so you could have walkable neighborhoods, to address parking concerns that are in some of the older neighborhoods that may not have adequate parking in them. Slide 11 As Chris mentioned, there was the first survey that was put out, and it was both online as well as distributed to different groups. We received 622 completed responses, which is a pretty darn good result. As slide number 11 indicates, you can see that the distribution of residents throughout the community who responded to the survey was predominantly on the east side of town, but people who lived in mid-city and on the west side of the city did respond to comments as well. That's what slide 12 shows you. Slide 13, and in fact, we've got a series of slides here that show you what the priorities for housing were by the survey respondents. From the types of housing that Garden Grove needs the most, as shown on slide 13. To slide 14, we asked people to define the challenges to living in Garden Grove. And interestingly, the first one is that most important, people felt that it was important for children who grew up in Garden Grove to be able to live here and come back and live here if they've gone away to school, or just stay here if they are choosing to go immediately into the workforce. Slide 15 indicates what people felt to be the best locations for new housing. And this survey has actually been refined by the visual survey that's now up online, where people can use maps to indicate where they think, where the most appropriate locations for housing are in the community. Slide 16 asks people to recognize that there are trade-offs and concerns with providing places for new housing development, and what were the concerns that people had. And that's what slide 16 shows you, the top rated responses that people felt that if there's going to be housing in Garden Grove, it should have the least impact that it could possibly have. Slide 17 indicates that the survey that is now up online, as I said, asks people very specifically as to what parts of Garden Grove could be developed with additional housing and what that housing might look like. We're going to come back to that in a minute, because that's really the takeaway that we need from the council this evening, are to make some pretty serious decisions about choices for increasing densities in particular parts of the community to meet the city's regional housing needs assessment. So with this mapping survey, it's available in all of the languages that are commonly spoken in Garden Grove. As Chris indicated, there's a big push to get people to participate. He didn't mention that there's also a raffle incentive right now for some Home Depot gift cards, which are very handy during the holidays. So that's what slide 18 shows you, is that that this is a very mapping-based, hands-on survey, really easy to take, really fun to do. So far, we've had 118, it's more than that actually as of today. So slide 19 shows you we've had just over 100 responses, and the survey will be up through mid-January. And so we are hoping to get a lot more responses during that time period. As slide 19 shows you, the responses have been from people all over the community. Slide 20 indicates so far of those people who have weighed in, where do they think sites are for housing in terms of excellent sites, not good sites that have been presented, and sites that we didn't think about that people are suggesting for housing throughout the community. Slide 21, and this is where we want for you to start to visually think about the community, because we're going to ask you about these particular geographic areas. But what the map on slide 21 shows you is that there are current areas of Garden Grove that are designated today, zoned today, for no more than 21 units per acre, about a townhouse level development. And we've asked if there is community sentiment to increase the density of these areas slightly, up to 24 units per acre. And thus far, a preponderance of respondents in slide 21 show that there is support for this slight increase in areas that show up in this pinkish color on slide 21. Slide 22, the question has been asked whether or not these very, what I'd call core areas of the community that show up here in purple and this olive color, whether or not the density could be increased from 32 units per acre, which is a modest condominium apartment level of development, maybe two stories, 3 stories, up to 48 units per acre, which would essentially add an additional story to the development. And so in these focus areas, thus far respondents have said they support this increase in density in this area. Slide 23, we've asked people to think about the next big jump. And on the areas that are shown in color on this map in the west end of the city, the kind of yellowish green color, the purple areas and the blue areas, whether or not people would support an increase from 48 units per acre, which is really what the highest, for the most part, what's allowed in Garden Grove today, up to 60 units per acre. And these questions weren't asked in a vacuum. As part of the survey, people are first shown different densities so they understand what these densities mean before they make a response. And not as much of an overwhelming response. This question for this density increase for 56% support, 34% dead flat don't support, and 10% of the people are still on the fence. And then lastly, this is within the I hope I'm going to get it right, the International West Pacific Plan area. And today, as you probably know, the focus is on attracting entertainment type uses to this area to take advantage of the direct connection to Disneyland and the things that are in the entertainment district in the Anaheim Resort. But the question has been asked whether or not there was support to allow housing in parts of this corridor up to 70 units per acre, so a fairly urban level intensity development. And the respondents had a pretty high acceptance rate of 62% to increase the density in this area, recognizing that it's a very walkable district. There are a lot of things to do if you're out and about during non-COVID times. And so this was supported as an urban level density at the east end of town. Slide 25. We took a lot of these ideas to a workshop with the community. So people had the ability to either participate online or to participate in an active workshop that we held about 2 weeks ago. And as slide 26 shows you, we had about 20 plus attendance. 32 people signed up, but not everybody always follows through and attends. So we had about 20 people attend. And they were presented information fairly similar to what we are presenting to you this evening. We walked them through the different options for increasing densities in particular areas of Garden Grove. And we had some very thoughtful comments, again, recorded using the digital wallboard, the mural graphic. And as slide 27 shows you, not only did people weigh in on the different sites, but we asked questions about what policies moving forward that address housing did they feel that Garden Grove needed to address. And there was quite a bit of discussion revolved around promoting and building more affordable housing in the community, but balancing that with the impacts on parking, traffic, city services, the wonderful park resources that you have here. That's all part of the balance when you're trying to provide new housing in the community. Slide 28, we presented the idea, or not the idea, but the mandate, if you will, that has come down from the state that Garden Grove provide capacity for just over 19,000 new units. And I know the council has been introduced to this before in the RENA discussion because there has been an appeal filed, but that's a pretty darn big number in a built out community to find space for that many new units. The participants asked a lot of good questions about what happens if the city doesn't meet that obligation. How do we go about selecting these sites? And is there the possibility that commercial areas that are maybe underperforming could be rezoned to support housing and thus encourage some sites that might not be very well kept right now to be repurposed for a much higher and meaningful use? Slide 29. Everybody weighed in on their ideas of where housing could be, and you can see some of the comments that they made. These are all summarized and on the city's network, so you can read all of the comments that are presented here. On slide 30, then, we went to the Planning Commission just the next day after the public workshop and walked through with the commission the same ideas, the same discussion. Slide 31. I think that first bullet point really encapsulates what the commission felt, that 19,122 is, in their words, an incredible number. And they wanted to know, does this have to be distributed throughout the city? Could it be concentrated in one area? Harbor Boulevard seems like a real opportunity corridor. The commission asked a lot of questions about how many people in Garden Grove have been asked these questions. And I think Chris pretty well encapsulated the tremendous effort that your staff has made to make sure that the entire community understands what's in front of them right now. So slide 32, let's move to slide 33 and really start to talk about the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, or the RHNA, that 19122. As this slide indicates, that it's not just the total number of units, but it's how those units are distributed among income categories in the community. And that roughly, if I can do my math real fast here, about 36% of those units fall within what are called the very low and low income categories. So below market rate units, what people call affordable housing. The city needs to plan, needs to zone to allow that level of affordable housing to be built in Garden Grove. Critical point, this is not a construction obligation. The obligation of the RHNA is for the city to plan and zone to accommodate those number of units. There is no penalty if those units are not built. The city just needs to make sure that the capacity is available to let market forces do their work. Slide 34. Let's start picking away at that 19,000 number. How has the city already made steps towards meeting that obligation over the next 8 years? Well, the city has in the pipeline, and I'm showing you in just a minute the number of units, but the city has some projects that have been approved that are in the pipeline and that are being moved through the process right now, and that there exists today a lot of potential sites along the major travel corridors in the community. And through what I believe you've seen is a really increased interest in accessory dwelling units, or what are called granny flats. With the loosening of state laws 2 years ago with regard to accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, that it's really been an explosion, not just in Garden Grove, but in all the communities I've worked in Southern California. They are seeing a very intense interest in building accessory dwelling units. Slide 35. One point that I want to make, and this slide doesn't really fully communicate it, but it's the fact that today, under your current general plan, the city's long-range plan only provides for zoning capacity of 6,400 more units, which is about 12,000, close to 13,000 short of what your RHNA is. And so that's what this housing element update is really all about, is how do you close that gap when you have land use policy that doesn't allow those number of units right now. And so the questions that we have for the council this evening are, where can you start to make changes, and where is it most appropriate to make changes to land use policy, to zoning, to allow this number to occur? And we've got on the slide a couple of options, that it's to allow higher residential densities at particular sites, and that's really the focus of the survey and the results that I just showed you a minute ago, to rezone commercial properties for mixed use, to start to maybe consider transitioning industrial lands that may be underperforming, and in response to a law that went into effect in January of this year, to look at properties owned by religious institutions, but bona fide churches, synagogues, temples, etc., mosques, that have large parking lot areas, to allow them to build housing on those parking lot areas and monetize and get a revenue stream from maybe excess properties that they have. So these are some of the key strategies to get towards that RHNA number. On slide 36, we've given you a summary of the things that the analysis that we have to go through and work with your community to understand what parcels, what lots, what sites in Garden Grove would be suitable. They're going to be scrutinized pretty heavily by the State Department of Housing and Community Development So we're going to have to go through a fairly intense level of analysis to decide which sites are going to be suitable for housing production over the long term. Slide 37. This slide shows in the blue highlighted parcels here, the effort that we have been through with city staff to look citywide at parcels that might, as we've indicated, be upzoned to a higher density, commercial properties that might be rezoned to mixed use, industrial lands that perhaps could be transitioned to some other use, mixed use, and also properties that are owned by religious institutions. And so that's what this map shows. And as we've found by the survey that's up right now, the mapping survey, people have identified other properties, but this was our first effort to figure out where we start to ask the community the questions about meeting your RHNA of 19,000 units. Hold on just a sec here. I'm having trouble getting my slide to advance. There we go. So the next slide shows housing opportunity sites based on the size of the property, be it less than 1 acre, 1 to 10 acres, and 10 acres or larger. So it might be a little bit easier to develop the sites that are a little bit larger. And you can see from this map that the sites that are 10 acres or bigger that already have development on them. Not that many. Most of the sites fall within the 1 to 10 acre range. The next slide shows of those properties that have been designated as possible sites, what is the current land use designation, general plan land use designation, and zoning on those properties. And as you can see, it's a real mixed bag. It covers pretty much every land use designation you have in Garden Grove today. Going to slide 40 then. I mentioned that we want to see, all right, has the city started to make progress already towards this regional housing needs? And from projects that are in the pipeline today, there are about 1,180 projects in the pipeline. The city would be able to accommodate roughly 2,100 accessory dwelling units over that time period, just based on the track record that the city has witnessed over the last 2 years. And that takes the number down about 3,300. And then in slide 41 shows you the continue to meet the RHNA, it means the city will have to consider some rezoning and to hit the RHNA that gets a little bit whittled down when you're looking at some of the lower intensely zoned sites. On slide 42, if you start to look at how to accommodate your remaining RHNA, once you look at sites that are already zoned for residential use, start to look at the mixed use sites, and if the density, and as you can see in the columns identified as maximum density, it shows the existing density and what the proposed density increase would be, and how that might start to move the city towards meeting its RHNA. And so what this slide shows you is that if there are density increases on these properties, the city will have enough capacity to meet its RHNA. So it's a long way of getting there. It's a big number. And so there's a lot to do to get there. And that's what we want to start to present to you this evening. Before we get into the interactive discussion, I want to ask Chris or Lisa if they have any comments or if I've missed anything that we need to cover before we go into this part of the discussion.
Not at this time.
Lisa, anything?
No, we're good. Thank you, Laura.
Okay. And I may have my colleague, Jose Rodriguez, step in to help me if I've forgotten about a particular thing to mention. Mr. Mayor, are there any questions before we get into the interactive discussion?
Colleagues, any questions, clarification questions before we get interactive?
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, George.
Yeah, so the city has some efforts currently afloat to reduce the RHNA count. If and when that happens, are you going to revise this plan, so to speak?
Yes, absolutely. What the councilman is referring to is the city has appealed its RENA. Those appeals are currently being heard. The hearings, I believe, will be in January, but there will not be a decision until February. But if the RENA is reduced at that point in time, that will absolutely be taken into consideration. And it's a big if, but we may come back to the council if we have questions about, given a reduced RENA allocation, are there decisions that we might make this evening that we would consider revisiting?
And I saw in a couple of your slides, you were counting ADUs. But I've been told from day one that the ADUs don't count towards RENA. Is that true or not true?
That is not true. ADUs count, and not only do they count, but an argument could be made that many of them count towards those lower income categories.
So they do count towards RENA, because literally, I think that's conflicting from what I've heard so far. All right, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, and I think, I don't remember, but I think we showed that we would include about 2,300 ADUs towards the RENA.
I have a question, Councilman O'Neill.
Hold on, can you hold 1 sec, Councilmember O'Neill? I think Omar wants to address that last bit.
Yeah, in terms of ADUs, they do count if the city is able to show what those units are being rented for. And we don't have any mechanism for requiring property owners to provide copies of leases or rental agreements to be able to prove to HCD how much they're being rented for. So they could count for purposes of market rate type units, but not for the lower income units. And again, unless we can provide evidence. So we would need legislation to authorize counting them for lower income. There are provisions in the law that if the units are in areas that are shown to be lower income, they could count. But I think that HCD is requiring some kind of proof, which we would not be able to provide at this time. I just wanted to make sure that we clarify that.
Omar, don't we have a mechanism in place requiring business licenses for all businesses? I would assume if you're renting an apartment or an ADU, you'd have to get a business license, correct?
Yes, they do require business licenses as renters of property, as landlords, but we don't require them to disclose or provide copies of their rental agreements. So we don't know how much the units are being rented for.
So that could be an easy fix.
Yeah, and I have a quick question for Chris. Chris, as part of the application process for ADUs, was the application asking what people intended to rent it for?
That's correct. Currently, our ADU application requests the applicant to provide an approximate rent amount. And I do want to add that, at our last OCOG meetings, there have been some discussions that SCAG has been working with HCD to develop a methodology for consideration of ADU affordability to count towards the RENA. That's still being worked on, and so that may be based off of size or number of bedrooms, or et cetera. I just want to add that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Neill, are you still waiting in the wings there?
Yeah, I am, and it relates. The question relates to what we're talking about. So, from what I understand, maybe somebody there can enlighten me. I believe the calculation for ADU can be a percentage of a unit. Is that right? How do they calculate it? Because I was told it was a percentage of a unit. So, in other words, an ADU, we would consider, the layperson would consider, that's one whole unit. But from what I'm understanding, the calculation is done on some sort of percentage base.
No, that they're counted as full units.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Other questions, or should we start to go through the housing sites discussion? Ready?
All right, let's go ahead and dive in.
Okay. And we would be on slide 44. I just wanted to reacquaint you on slide 44 with your current general plan. For those of you not familiar with what general plan colors mean, anything that's in a yellow or orangish color is a residential use. That really light color is all of your single family neighborhoods throughout Garden Grove. Anything that you see in those purplish colors are mixed use or planned for mixed use. Red is commercial, like you see along Trask, and blue is institutional use, green or parks. And so I think what we're really focusing on are the deeper orange colors, some of your multifamily areas, and the purple areas that are mixed use. So let's go to the next slide, 45. These are areas that are currently planned for mixed use at no more than 21 units per acre. So that you can see that those occur a lot along Garden Grove Boulevard at the Chapman Brookhurst intersection, on the west side of the city at Valley View and Chapman, and then up on Catella Avenue. And these are all planned for mixed use development at about a townhouse density. The next slide shows you what this level of development looks like. On the left, you could see 21 units per acre. On the right, the proposal is to increase the density, this is on slide 46, to 24 units per acre. So not that much. And if anything, it would might add an additional level up to 3. You could see the units on the right are tuck under parking over with 2 stories of living above, so a townhouse type development. And so the question is on slide 46, and if you want to toggle back to 45, whether or not increasing the density from 21 to 24 units per acre is a policy direction that the city wants to take. And Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you want me to go through all of these or if you want to pause for discussion at each of the proposals.
Colleagues, any desire to stop, or do you want to just keep rolling?
Keep rolling.
Keep rolling. Good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Let's go ahead.
All right. Slide 47. These are areas that are either mixed use today, mixed use commercial residential, or mixed use industrial residential at a density of up to 32 units per acre. Slide 48 shows that the proposal would to be moved from 32 to 48 units per acre. So essentially something that would be about a 4-story to something similar to what you experience over the Chapman Commons area that's about 4 stories on top of a layer of parking. And so you do have something that's about 48 units per acre today, that the proposal is to increase that mixed use category to allow across the board up to 48 if somebody chooses to go that high. Slide 49 identifies areas of the community where properties are zoned for up to 42 units per acre today, either in the Civic Center area, along Garden Grove Boulevard, or along Western at the west end of town. And this is policy that exists today. The proposal on slide 50 is to move from 42 units per acre to 60 units per acre, as the images show you. A little bit more intense. And I think it's very important to mention, this is an obvious thing, but I wanted to say it anyway, is that the density is shaped certainly by the size of the unit. So if you've got an apartment building that's mostly studios, you can put a lot more units in there and have a higher density. Whereas if you've got a condominium development that has 1, 2, and 3-story bedrooms, the density yield might not be as high within the same building envelope, if you will, just because of the size of the units. And nothing in your zoning code, nothing in the general plan or the housing element would dictate the unit size, the individual unit size. So let's go to slide 51. This is in the international specific plan area, international mixed use, where the maximum density is 60 units per acre today, along Harbor Boulevard and Garden Grove Boulevard. Slide 52 indicates that the proposal is to go from 60 units per acre to 70 units per acre, or homes per acre. As I mentioned earlier, a much more urban feel, and the exhibit on the right shows you that this would be could be a mixed-use proposal where you've got ground floor retail with apartments and or condominiums above. And I believe this is actually the project that's proposed on Jose, this is on Garden Grove Boulevard today, right? Where the steel shell has been existing for so many years.
Correct.
Thank you. So slide 53, the last site is the site at the southeast end of the community where the OC streetcar would be proposed to extend from Santa Ana past Willowick, which we just talked about earlier this evening, and into Garden Grove on Harbor Boulevard. And the proposal would be in this area to create a real urban level, mixed use, more intense development, a very walkable neighborhood with a lot of complementary uses. And at slide 54 indicates the area of the proposed land use designation for the OC streetcar area around the transit station, which is shown by that little streetcar on the image. So we can back up to any of these slides if you could just mention the number as we go through our discussion to come back to that. But I did want to hit on one of the council folks did ask about the RENA appeal. The city did appeal its number. Actually, what it did is it appealed the way Santa Ana's RENA was calculated, and it was done in such a way that units were taken away from Santa Ana and assigned to Garden Grove and other communities. And I think 4 or 5 communities appealed that entire process, and on the grounds that circumstances have changed and that the methodology really didn't take into account what's really going on in the communities that receive the burden of the additional units. And the city did request a reduction to 16,309 units, and we will not know until the SCAG board meets if that is going to be supported or not. The next steps in this process, and the reason we're before you this evening is, I'm going to go to the end and then back up, is the housing element needs to be adopted by the city council by October 15th of 2021. And that might seem like a long way away, but when we take into account a lot of the lengthy review periods that the state housing and community development department takes, and the fact that the city will be preparing an environmental impact report, that when you add all of that together, it means that we need to get direction from the council this evening on these land use changes so that we can start the process of analyzing the impacts and pulling the housing element together. This doesn't mean that this is set in stone. We're just looking for the council to give a general direction that, yes, it looks okay for study purposes to move forward with these proposed land use changes through the public hearing process. Yes.
Excuse me, Laura. Council members, this is Lee Marino. I just wanted to clarify that tonight we're just having you look at the alternatives. We will be coming back to you on the 12th of January to actually get your direction on this, because we want you to have time to be able to digest all this information that we're giving.
Thanks, Lee.
Thanks,
Sorry,
Lee.
I was jumping ahead too fast.
Sure.
Plus, I think due to the fact that the survey mapping survey will continue to run for the next month, that'll give the council even more consideration as to what the public thinks about these proposed changes. So we're looking for some key questions from you this evening and key considerations on the proposals. So on slide 60, all of this information shows that there's a great website that your staff is maintaining that provides a lot of good things for the community to dive into and read in the language they feel most comfortable. And with that, Lee, was there anything else you needed to say? Sorry to give you guys a scare on what we were looking for you to do tonight. But Lee or Chris or Lisa?
No.
Not at this time.
Not at this time.
We're all good.
We're all good.
So with that, Mr. Mayor, I will stop talking and turn it back over to you.
All righty, thank you. Thanks, Lee, for jumping in on that. And so just to clarify, I don't believe this is an action item at all tonight. This is just a presentation for us to get kind of a glimpse at what is being worked on in terms of the housing element cycle and proposed future alternatives as we scramble to try and figure out how to accommodate such an audacious number of RENA allocation units we've been mandated. So with that, I don't know, colleagues, any comments? We're not heading towards any action tonight, so this is just a presentation, but feel free to jump in. Any observations? Yeah.
Mayor Jones, Councilman Fatboy, I do appreciate Lee Moreno clarification that we still have plenty of time to digest the material. I often have expressed my concern about complex, planning like this. Typically, I need a lot of time to absorb it, and I appreciate that that time will be given us. Now, I understand that we need to move forward, but given COVID and also giving holiday is coming, I would like to have a little more time, if I may, so that I can sit down with staff to digest. As I read through this presentation, I will have various questions for staff so that I can understand the impact to our city. Most importantly, in 3 areas: traffic and infrastructure. Secondly, the impact to ambulance and first responder services, and most importantly, public safety, law enforcement, etc. How will I need a lot of input from staff, from our police chief, from our firefighter division chief, so that I can, and then also from public work to understand the impact, so that we can form some opinion on how to deal with it. That is very important. This is something that I said at council meeting a couple months ago, that I do not feel that the state have given us the appropriate resource when they put this thing down to our throat. And so I need to understand the impact to us, so that we, at council, meeting in the future, we can direct staff to work with the various state departments to see, what can they do to help. They cannot just force us to do something without giving us the tool to do it. And so it is our responsibility to let them know that this is what we want you to give us if you want us to implement this. Thank you. That's all for me.
Thank you. Colleagues?
Mayor Jones, this is Tuha.
Please go ahead, Tuha.
I have a question for the staff regarding the RENA appeal request. As we're submitting the request, we ask for the reductions of 19,000 something unit to about 16,000 something unit. The number of 16,000 something unit, what are we based on, just to reduce by less than 3,000?
Councilman Tuha, this is Chris Chung. The city of Garden Grove has appealed its own number, and there are several points to that appeal, but the main kind of crux of it is that it has to do with the equitable distribution of units that the city has received through, they're called residual units. And so because the city is not considered a disadvantaged community, it receives its full 19,000 plus units, whereas other cities in the Orange County area that are considered disadvantaged communities, and what that means to be considered a disadvantaged community, or DAC, is that based on certain factors, at least 50% of your population is considered in a low resource area. And so because certain other cities that are considered a DAC, their RENA number gets capped at a much lower number based on kind of their own projected growth numbers. So for example, Trying to think of another city, but City of Orange, you know, if they might have received the 15,000 RENA, that gets capped at around 3,000. So it has to kind of do with the equitable distribution of those residual units that we receive. So when, you know, City of Orange gets their number reduced, that doesn't just disappear. It actually gets distributed to all the other cities in the Orange County area that are not disadvantaged communities. And then the other appeal, as Laura mentioned, is the Santa Ana appeal.
I see. So by saying that, that means that they based on the total number of regional and distributed by the city. So if the city gets reduction, it's going to add that differences to other area. Am I understand correctly?
That's correct. That's correct. The numbers do not go away. They just get redistributed throughout the region.
I see. So if we base on the income and based on that, overall, we ask for a reduction by 3,000. I mean, if we comparable our city to other city, neighbor city, is there a chance that we can be able to lower to lower than 16,000, and then add that difference somewhere else?
If the city wins its appeal, it is possible. But just to note that there are other cities also appealing. So if other cities that win their appeals, those numbers, you know, their numbers get, you know, lowered, and then so again, those units just get redistributed everywhere. So SCAG has a tough job to figure out how those all get redistributed.
Okay. My last question is: do you know how many cities appealing right now overall in Orange County?
Yes, there were 49 appeals filed to SCAG.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I have a quick question, O'Neill.
Go ahead, John.
Chris might be able to answer this. Chris, for instance, what was Santa Ana's housing number right now? What were they require? How many units?
You know? Santa Ana's RENA Santa Ana is considered a disadvantaged community. So based on SCAG's calculation, their RENA would have been 26,256. But because they're considered the disadvantaged community, it was capped at 3,087.
3,087.
So those units get redistributed, or again, the residual units get redistributed, and a good chunk of that goes to Garden Grove.
Mayor Jones, if no one else asks a question, could I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Pat.
Chris, do we know? I'm assuming that Westminster also get the credit. So my question to you is, how on earth that Santa Ana, twice as big as Garden Grove, got only 3,000 plus additional units, and Garden Grove got 19. What criteria do they use to qualify? And not only Santa Ana, Orange, Westminster, what criteria did they use that qualify them for the DAC? And we didn't. Because it seemed to me that it was very unfair that all of a sudden, all of the reduction in Santa Ana, which is quite big, you know, they have 26,000 units, but then they are capped at 3,000. That means 23,000 plus units get redistributed to cities such as Garden Grove, and that's why we got 19,000 units. This is something that we have to fight very hard. Now, if you mention that we are appealing and we hope we can get a reduction of $3,000, that's nothing. Does CAC understand that there is a lot of, let's just take the Little Saigon area, Brookhurst, Magnolia, and Euclid. Every weekend, there are so much traffic from many other nearby cities that exit on Euclid, Brookhurst or Magnolia to go to the Westminster shopping area, and they're getting that through that corridors, creating a tremendous of traffic jams. So now we're adding 19,000 more units in Garden Grove and somewhere along Freeway 22, in other cities, 1,000 more. How does that impact our infrastructure? Do we communicate that to SCAG? Do they have the data to model that?
Councilman Bowie, this is Chris. I believe there were several parts to your question. The first one is the Westminster their arena, for example, is 9,700 about. And, again, the city of Santa Ana, because they're considered disadvantaged community, their original would have been number of 26,000 or so gets down to 3,000 because of the methodology that was approved by SCAG and HCD as far as how units are distributed. So that 1.3 million number for the SCAG region, they have approved a methodology that determines how those units get dispersed. Trying to remember your second question. Impacts. Oh, the impacts will definitely be.
Do we understand why is it that Santa Ana qualify for that? Disability, not disability. I'm sorry, disadvantaged community.
Yes. The that's one point of contention that,
and we don't.
Right, I definitely agree with you, and that's part of that's our main, the city's main argument is that it was inequitable how that was determined. The SCAG methodology that was approved by the regional council determined that in order to be considered a disadvantaged community, more than 50% of your population in the city must be in a low resource area, and there are several different factors. It's quite complicated how they determine those scores. But the city, for example, Santa Ana, I believe they're on 80 to 90% disadvantaged. However, the city of Garden Grove just missed the cut by, I believe we're about 49%, 48 point something percent. So we're just below the threshold, and that's part of kind of our argument to SCAG that kind of arbitrary number, the threshold of 50% was inequitable, and then further that the distribution of the units was also inequitable.
Hey, Chris, this is Scott Stiles.
Couple more follow-up questions, John. Couple more follow-up questions.
Hold on one second, please. City Manager Scott Stiles wanted to address something to Chris.
Well, I just wanted to kind of get at Fat's question too. Chris, you might share with him. I think part of our argument is to say that it shouldn't be just a hard cutoff. It should have been more of a sliding scale, which would have been much more equitable for cities such as ours. Do I have that right?
Yes, that is correct. In Garden Grove's appeal, the proposed kind of alternative methodology of determining the DAC percentage, because basically SCAG's methodology of 50% threshold to be considered a DAC, it's kind of an all or nothing approach. So, it's kind of saying that if a city of Orange, for example, if they're 60% disadvantaged, they meet the cutoff, and so their arena gets reduced as, a huge chunk of it gets reduced as if the entire city is disadvantaged, whereas Garden Grove, even though we're just a 1 point something percent below, we're treated as if our entire city is not in a disadvantaged area. So part of the Garden Grove's appeal to SCAG was proposing a sliding scale so that in an equitable fashion, so for example, for a city like Santa Ana, if they are 80%, for example, they would get an 30%, which is over the 50% threshold. So a 30% reduction in the arena, and then so on and so forth for the other disadvantaged communities. And so that residual redistribution of units is not so large, and then they take on a larger number of units, and which would meet the intent of of HCD's methodology, which is that to further promote the construction of housing near jobs and transit, which is part of their methodology.
I am not an expert in this field, so I really have no, it's above my pay grade. But just from a layperson perspective, I don't see how we are so far different than the city of Orange, or even Santa Ana. So it's really surprised to us that we pay a really big high premium for something that we are just a little bit different. So my question for Omar and for you is, if we appeal to SCAC and it doesn't make much difference, to me, from $19,000 to $16,000 is not fair, unacceptable. So if we are not even sure that they will consider that, but even if they consider that, it's still very unfair to us. So my question to you and to Omar is, what is our next option if we totally not agree with SCAC? Can we sue them?
This is Omar Sandoval.
Meaning take a lawsuit.
Yeah, so this is Omar Sandoval, city attorney. So the quick answer to that is that there's case law that says that we cannot go to litigation on this. It ends at that appeal level, unless, of course, the state legislature changes the law. Irvine appealed a couple of years ago in the last go around. They lost, and they filed a lawsuit, and the court said there's no provision in the law for the courts to get in the middle of this, and basically confirmed that there's no recourse at the court level.
How unfair.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
This is Councilmember Kloppenstein. I'm not trying to switch gears here, go off topic. When I'm looking at the key geographic areas and looking at disadvantaged communities, what kind of a role does transportation play into this, or maybe proximity to their workplace, things like that? Does that have any bearing in any of the factors as we look at this?
Yes, Councilman Kloppenstein, this is Chris. For example, not to go back to Santa Ana, but their residual units, those, when they get redistributed, those get redistributed at a 50-50 split. So 50% to transit access and 50% to job access. And it just happens to be that Garden Grove is one of the highest percentiles. I believe it's about 97, 98 for each. But that's part of our argument is that's, I believe Santa Ana is the highest, if not the second highest, in those respective percentiles. But because of that DAC 50% threshold that SCAG and HCD have approved in the methodology, it doesn't apply to them. So, but it does apply quite a bit to us.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Jones, this is Mayor Pro Tem Kim. I just wanted to, thank staff for all of their work on this. And I've been eating, breathing, and trying to consume all things RHNA related the last couple of months as I got up my appointments to OCOG and SCAG. And, Director Kim's staff have been very helpful with providing me with all the information. I think a few weeks ago, I participated in a roundtable where I presented on behalf of Garden Grove regarding our appeal and just some other information sharing what amazing things our staff has been doing to be on top of this process. I believe, Mayor Jones, you were in attendance. I do not personally agree with this 19,000 unit allotment. I think that it is unfair, and it is not only unfair, but it's unachievable in my opinion. I just think that they're setting us up for failure. While I do think that we are not saying that we don't want to have housing in affordable units and increase our allotment, I just think that we would prefer to have something that we can actually plan and achieve. It seems like we oftentimes have to be forced to do something. If we looked at other areas in which this is happening for us regarding housing, especially, just our conversations a few months ago regarding ADUs, we have historically been a very NIMBY type city. And so I would just look for us to be more collaborative with our staff, our consultants, and our residents in finding ways to achieve higher unit allotments while not obviously destroying our city with extremely dense projects that we won't be able to maintain or sustain. So I'm definitely advocating both with OCOG and SCAG in our various committees that I sit on. I have personal direct contact with, president of SCAG as well as the, Kome who runs the organization, and constantly working at that. But it's tough, when everyone's saying that, cities that got very small allotments are fighting those allotments. It makes it harder for those of us who have a very serious gap in achieving the goals that we have set out. It makes it look a little bit ridiculous. So it's very difficult. I can tell you right now, the conversations have not gone very well. But there are a number of cities who are fighting their allotment. So it's a work in progress. I'm hopeful that our appeal will be heard and reconsidered. And so it's just a matter of waiting and seeing what they occur. But for now, we do have to plan for those 19,000 units, over 19,000 units, and do the best that we can. And those are all the comments I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Kim. What else? Any other comments, observations, insights, grievances?
Just one very brief comment, or probably a request.
Go ahead.
Chris and Lee Moreno. In December, I'm very busy, and also I'm trying to limit it face-to-face conversation with staff because of COVID. But hopefully in January, I need to sit down with you and understand the impact to parkings along the street and many other issues. Now, over the past 4 years, I have heard so much complaint about parking along public streets close to people's homes. So with this additional units and ADU, that issue that we have not been able to resolve and keep growing. How are we going to deal with that? I need you and Lee Moreno to sit down with me and educate me on those kind of things, and perhaps also with traffic engineering as well.
We can set up a meeting. This is Lee. We can set up a meeting with you after the first of the year. One thing I do want to say is part of this whole process, the environmental impact report will be looking at not just traffic, but they'll be looking at air quality, water quality, noise. It'll also be looking at emergency resources, as well as utilities. So we do have to, through the environmental process, look at all the impacts. Parking is not one of the impacts, however, that we have to look at through the CEQA process. Because it's not a CEQA. It's not an issue as far as CEQA is concerned. It's an issue as far as work.
But it is a concern to our residents.
Yes.
Because I have brought it up so many times. People in District 4, people in fact, people who are just a couple blocks from my house, people in other districts, District 5 and District 6, have complained so much about having to park, a few blocks away from their home. That's how bad it is. And I brought this up to traffic engineering, and there is no resolution. Now, I understand, it's not a concern at the state level, but it is a big deal for our residents. So I think we need to look at that as well. Because it will be just because it will be, thinking, the parking problem that we already have and we don't have solution to it. It becomes very, very bad for our residents. Adding 19,000 more units, it will make it a lot worse. And by then, if we do not plan for it, Lee, our residents will complain and will put pressure on the city council to address it. And we'll come just right out to Mr. Stein and to all of you guys. So I'd rather that we deal with it up front than just close the eye and ignore that parking issue.
Mayor Jones, Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen here. I'd just like to add one other piece of commentary that I failed to mention in my previous comments. Obviously there's a need for housing in Garden Grove, especially affordable housing. As the only council member who's currently renting an apartment, it's expensive, and it doesn't allow for us to save money to purchase our home and to say that those of us who are young or whatever are not looking to own our own home is false. It's just a matter of I'm paying, 30-40% of my income towards this. I still have student loans, car insurance, groceries, etc. It's very difficult. And so there are a huge population of our residents who require these types of higher allotment numbers, and it's our duty to represent them as well. It's not just preserving the single family home neighborhoods and the residents that currently own homes, right? There are residents who are doubled and tripled up in single family homes because they can't afford to leave, whether it's helping their parents pay the mortgage or it's simply they can't afford to leave. Whatever that case is, there's another group of people that we need to keep in mind. And there's a lot of other residents who are pushing for better transportation, more public transportation, rather than everyone having their own vehicle. And I think that projects like the OC streetcar are pushing towards that. The idea of having a walk and bike paths is pushing towards that. So, I'm a huge staunch on parking. I think myself and Councilmember Brenham have brought that up a number of times based on complaints that we've had with our residents, and that's why we push for parking enforcement. I hear it all the time in District 6, and I know that all of us hear it in all of our districts. So obviously that's something very serious that we do have to look at, but I don't want us to be, beholden to NIMBYs and, use parking as an excuse not to do what we're supposed to do. So I just want us to bear that in mind as well. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Scott Stiles, City Manager here. I thought I would just also mention, I believe that Lisa Kim has advised me, I think the first set of cities in the SCAG region are going to begin their appeals, I think next week. The list I saw were about 8 or 9 cities that were all up in Los Angeles County that are all appealing their numbers just like we are. I presume some of the Orange County cities are going to start to get scheduled for their appeals towards the end of this month, if not early next year. And we will certainly keep council appraised on whenever our appeal happens, and so you're aware of it, and keeping you up to date on that.
All right, colleagues, anything else?
Time to move on.
I agree. I didn't say much, but I'll just wrap it up with just kind of trying to put it back in perspective on the context of this item. I want to thank staff, also the group from MIG, just for all your professional work on diving into the weeds on this and the details of it. I realize it's a very laborious task to try and dive into all this and try and make sense of it. So, within the context of we've been mandated by the state to try and find where we would put 19,000 units. You guys went and did that and said, where can we put where throughout the city could the city possibly handle various levels of density going forward? I think we all probably, coming from different orientations, but I think we all generally agree that we need to push forward and drive for more housing, more affordable housing in our city. It's what our demographics of our city needs. It's what our city needs, but there's also a point where it's just ridiculous, and I think we all agree that 19,000 units mandated upon us, or going from 700 units to a 19,000 unit RENA allocation just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So I think we're all on the same page on all that. I know staff and MIG was just looking to try and outline a map for, okay, where could these units go if they had to go? I think in a parallel path, we're pursuing the appeal, and we're going to explore any other possible alternatives on how to try and bring this back into some sense of reason for what genuinely makes sense within our city, given all the increased traffic and parking concerns and environmental concerns and smog and air quality and everything that we already face. So I don't think any of us are in any race to try and build 19,000 units in our city, but we're going through a process that we have to go through because the state is mandating it. And at the same time, we're also trying to pursue ways that we can push back within a legal format. So thanks everybody for your hard work, and thanks council colleagues for all the thoughtful comments and observations. With that, we will move on to item 7B, which is a discussion on considering an ordinance requiring a minimum of 30 days residency prior to pulling nomination papers to run for office. And this is requested by by Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen.
You'll get it eventually. Thank you, Mayor.
I read it. It said that.
So, unfortunately, we can't move forward with requesting an ordinance because it's been brought to my attention that that's not allowed. I don't know if the city attorney would like to elaborate more, but I would like to amend the discussion and my request for us to submit a letter to our legislators to adjust the government code to allow for cities to be able to have a 30-day residency. I know that it may be challenging. I'm for sure going to be lobbying for it, but I would love to have the support of the entire council for something like this. I think it's important. 30 days doesn't seem like a terrible requirement. It's not like we're asking for a year. I think 30 days seems significant enough, and that someone who's running to represent the city should be able to, show that they live in the city for starters, and that they plan to stay here, and that they haven't just moved in for the sake of the title. So that's kind of what this item has turned into. The city attorney can jump in and add to that if necessary, but I would like the support of the council to proceed with a letter for advocating for the adjustment to the government code.
Yes, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor?
Oh. Go ahead. No, please go ahead.
This is Omar. I don't know if you want me to give a brief explanation.
Please go ahead. Yeah,
okay, so currently, Government Code Section 36502 identifies the qualifications to serve as a member of the City Council, and it does provide that to qualify, a person must be a registered voter of the city at the time the nomination papers are issued. There is case law that confirms that general law cities have to follow state law, specifically that provision with respect to qualifications. And unless the legislature either specifically authorizes the city to adopt a 30-day requirement or 15-day requirement, the state would have to amend that code section to specifically say that you have to be a resident voter at least 30 days before you can pull nomination papers. So that's the information I shared with Mayor Pro Tem earlier after I completed my research on this particular issue. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Mayor?
A question for Omar, Mayor Jones.
Go ahead, Fat. Stephanie, you're next.
Okay. Now, I think it makes a lot of sense. Kim had suggested 30-day period, and I think it makes so much sense for us. Now, my question for you, Omar, is how can other cities such as Westminster City, they do have that 30-day requirement, and yet Garden Grove, we didn't have it.
Yeah, so back in 1992, a city tried to adopt a regulation that conflicted with Government Code 36502. And the court said, no, the state has dictated the qualifications and you cannot change them. Then in 1993, a charter law city adopted their own qualifications under their charter. And the court said, well, that's a local concern. Who gets to serve on your city council? And therefore held that charter cities are exempt from that provision of the law. So the cities, and back in 1975, there was a California Supreme Court decision that held that a one-year residency violated the Equal Protection Code, but the 30 days was fine. So this is why you will see a lot of the charter cities in the state of California will have a 30-day residency requirement because they follow the decision of the California Supreme Court and because they're exempt from the government code with respects to qualifications for their public officers. So I don't know if Westminster is a charter city.
Westminster is a general law city just like us. That I know for a fact. And
Okay.
yet, I don't know whether they doing it legally or illegally, but they do have a requirement of 30-day, residency before you can pull the paper to run for city council or mayor. So
yes, yeah. So the
either
case,
either they do it wrong or they do it right. And if that's the case, then why can't we just do like Washington did? Is it
Yes.
something, in other words, is it something that we can put to the residents to vote to change the ordinance and require it to be 30 days?
So it would not require a vote of the people because the city council can simply amend the municipal code to do that. And I did consider that. And I think I try to figure out a way to craft an ordinance that, we can argue doesn't conflict with state law. But I think push come to shove, the case that actually said that we have to follow general law, in my view, had language that was pretty strong, that the state had preempted the whole field. And unless the state specifically allowed general law cities to do it, they couldn't do it. So yes, we can adopt an ordinance, and if everyone follows it, there's no problem. But if you have an individual who moves into a district and wants to pull papers 15 days after they're registered, or even 10 days, or even the day that they pull nomination papers, and they take us to court claiming that our ordinance is preempted by state law, in my opinion, a judge would most likely find that it's preempted by Government Code 36502. And knowing that the city council is risk averse as to litigation, my recommendation is basically, my opinion is basically trying to be conservative and not expose the city to litigation.
Another good reason to become a charter.
I don't mean to disregard to the state law. So there's no other avenue.
Well, I think that we can ask our local legislators to consider revising the law. Up until 2018, there was a 15-day requirement before you can become a voter elector. But back in 2018, the state changed the law and actually changed the law to say that you can register the day of the election and still vote with provisional ballots. So that made it, the policy of the state is that you can register up to the day of the election. It used to be a 15-day, which in effect created a 15-day residency requirement. And the state took that away in 2018. I'm not sure that they were thinking about the effect of that decision on individuals who want to pull papers and run for office. Now that there are many, many cities going to district elections. And now there's going to be more pressure, not just from, individuals moving from out of the city into the city, but individuals within the city moving in between districts. So again, this is a political issue for the city council to discuss. I'm just reporting on the legalities of the avenues available. I think that the state legislature can do one or two things. Number one, they can specifically add a 30-day or 15-day, whatever requirement that makes sense. And number two, they can instead specifically authorize general law cities to adopt residency requirements no longer than 30 days because of that Supreme Court decision. I can tell you that the cases back in the 90s that dealt with preemption were term limit cases. And after the 1993 decision, the state amended the code to specifically authorize cities to adopt term limits. And they can do the same here. They can amend the code to specifically authorize cities to adopt their own residency requirements consistent with the Supreme Court decision after 30 days.
Mr. Mayor, I'll second Mayor Pro Tem's Wynn's motion.
Was there one?
Can I just clarify something, please?
Yeah, please go ahead, Stephanie.
Sorry, this may have already been answered in Omar's answer there, but so is this district by district as well?
Yes.
Affects districts as well. So this would be something where it's not just I move from a different city into a particular district, but if I'm moving district to district within the city as well.
Yes.
The whole everything. Okay.
Yes, because our current district ordinance specifically says that you have to be a resident voter of that district in order to be able to pull nomination papers. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Just
so the residency requirement would apply to district, not obviously for mayor it would be citywide.
Understood. Okay.
What are you trying to say?
The only thing with the district would be, let's just say if someone live just across, let's say if that person ran an apartment on the east side of Brookhurst, and then they want to run on district number that are on the other border of district of that on the west of Brookhurst. Requirement to 30 days because it's so close to the border. It's just right on, it just have a plot at the border of the district. I think it's a little bit too strict. Now, obviously, you don't want someone from all the way from East Garden Grove to West Garden Grove to, change the address within just a week or two in order to run. But for someone who are so close to the district border, to me, it's considered as very much the same area. So is there room for us to differentiate between those differences?
I'm not sure how you could possibly have district elections if you allow individuals from a different district to run in a separate district.
No. I'm not. I'm just saying that if they move, let's just say I'm moving only 100 feet from one district to the other because I live right in the order of the district. It doesn't make sense to require that person to be moving a month ahead of time in order to run for the new district. We have to be in that district, but if he is just moving across the street, to me, that person, very much serve the interest of that area. That's a challenge that we have. It's not from a different city to this city, but just across the street.
Can I chime in? This is Tuha.
Yeah, please
Yeah.
go ahead, too.
Well, I think if we go with this, it needs to be consistency. It's not just city to city, it's going to be consistency for the district to district. Otherwise, we're going to have two systems and there's no way to differentiate it. So in order to move down the road for this one, it's going to apply to district as well. And I think 30 days is very reasonable.
Mayor Jones, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves here. I'm just asking for a letter to push our legislators to have the 30-day requirement. The nuance of that can be discussed at another time on how we apply that in Garden Grove.
True.
I agree.
I'm just asking for a letter of support from everyone, please.
And I seconded that.
Okay, I agree.
Thank you.
So can we actually take an, or do we even need an action, or is this more of just a direction to staff to write a letter?
Yeah, so this is direction. So if the majority agrees, we can agendize an item for you to review a letter that we would put together for you to approve and sign. Either authorize the mayor to sign, authorize the city manager to sign, or all 7 council members can sign.
Do you even need a formal action to?
Yeah, we
prepare a
do.
letter?
We do, because under your policies and procedures, if one council member can bring in a discussion item, you need a majority vote to agendize it as an action item.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's what we're doing. She's making a motion to agendize this as an action item.
Correct.
And in that process,
Correct.
there will presumably be prepared for.
Yes.
In that time frame?
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, so during that, as I understand it, during that time frame, our staff will work with Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen to craft a letter that we think captures the spirit of what's been discussed today, and we'll have that on the agenda for the next meeting for council to take a look at.
Okay. Sounds good. We've got a motion to agendize this letter for an action item on the next meeting in a second. Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Brightigam,
Yeah.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Quinn,
Yes.
Councilmember Bowie,
Yes.
Councilmember Klopfenstein,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
and Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay, any other matters from council members? Mayor Pro Tem Kim Nguyen, anything?
Thank you. Many cities had their special meeting tonight to swear in their newly elected council members. So I'd like to wish all, and their newly elected mayors, I'd like to wish all of them congratulations. I would like to give a special shout out and big congratulations to my dear friend Tai Fan on her election to Santa Ana City Council. Theirs was tonight as well, and I unfortunately couldn't be there to cheer her on, but I was there in spirit. I'm so proud of her and looking forward to working with her in our neighboring communities. I would also like to congratulate my partner, Councilman Penaloza, who has just been voted in as Mayor Pro Tem as well. And lastly, I'd like to wish a very happy birthday to my baby brother. I'm astonished at the fact that he's 17. It feels like yesterday I was changing his diapers, but happy birthday. Love you so much, Sean. Thank you, Mayor. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Klopfenstein.
I just want to wish the Garden Grove community happy holidays and a very Merry Christmas. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Bowie.
Just want to remind everyone that COVID is real. And I strongly recommend people to keep social distance, wear masks all the times when you go out. It's very important. I have heard reports from a lot of people in the community that are getting COVID, testing positive. Some are very serious, some are in ICU, and others just pass away. In fact, a person that is a friend of my friend, in her 40s, have just passed away a week ago. Her funeral was at St. Columban last Saturday. Very saddened by it. So COVID is real. Wear mask and keep social distance and have a safe holiday.
Thank you. Councilmember Deidre Tuhawin.
Well, I just want to congratulate my mayors and my council colleagues, and to wish everybody a happy and safe holiday. See you guys next year.
Thank you. Councilmember Bradicum.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep, there you are.
Oh, okay. Hey, yeah, just, congratulations again to all the winners of the election. Glad to be working with everybody. Also a happy, or I should say a Merry Christmas to all the Garden Grove community, and Happy New Year, as we won't be meeting again until next year. And that's about it.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Neill.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to reach out and remind anybody that might be listening to this, if you're struggling through this COVID situation, maybe you've lost a job, maybe that one of your family members has COVID. There's a lot of stress out there right now on everybody. Most of us are fortunate. We have our jobs. We might be essential workers. But when you're all out there, out and about, there's a lot of people that are hurting. I would just advise those people to reach out for help if you need help. You're just worried about putting food on your table or paying the rent or the mortgage. There is help out for you. Please reach out for help, family and loved ones and people near you. There are solutions to these problems. So with that, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and looking forward to serving and having a better year next year in 2021. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you. General Counsel, do we have any need for a closed session or anything to report?
No, no report, no need for closed session. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager Scott Stiles.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just want to extend my congratulations to all the members of council that were reelected. And I know I speak on behalf of all the staff of the city. We have, as I said earlier, we've got a lot on our plate. We got a lot going on. 2021, I think we're all happy to be moving, getting out of 2020 onto 2021, but we're gonna have a lot of work to do. And as always, the staff, we're looking forward to those challenges and carrying out the direction of the council in the direction you want us to go. So we're looking forward to that. And to just reiterate what Councilman Bradicum said, our next normally scheduled meeting is on December 22nd, which will be canceled, and our next meeting will be the second Tuesday in January. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
That's great. All right, little long meeting tonight. Thank you all for hanging in there. I just want to say happy holidays to everyone. Hope you're able to relax and enjoy some time with your family and loved ones as we get through the end of 2020 and look forward to a much brighter new year. So with that, we will stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.